Isn't that what rain does for you, Heather? That little girl's voice crackled behind my head, dripping darkness and acid. Rescues you? A giggle like a chorus of nails down a blackboard. She was finally trailed off. A weight shifted on the bed again, as she rearranged herself. My heart beat slow now, and everything ached, recovering from my brush with the border of ego death. My eyes felt sticky, gummed open. The sun tilted through the window, bathing the bed in weak late afternoon orange. Faint voices carried from downstairs, where the others still worked on saving Evelyn. Lozzie's eyes twitched behind their lids. Are you done? I croaked. Pardon me. Are you done talking? I coughed, then winced in slow motion from the sheer effort of expelling breath. Over the course of a strange and unique life I have become intimately familiar with exhaustion. Not run-of-the-mill tiredness, or a healthy empty tank after a hard day's work, but true exhaustion, usually known only by those going through chronic fatigue syndrome or tuberculosis or the brutality of chemotherapy. I knew the ins and outs of my body's limits, how far I could push myself, when to read the signs of collapse and when to ignore the feeling. Once you've spent enough time dead on your feet, you get a sense for when it's safe to lie still for 5 minutes, and when one simply must respond to a threat. With my throat raw and stinging from bile, my head pounding like a jackhammer, my every fiber fragile and thin as my vision throbbed black and red, this petty little demon did not warrant the energy to roll over. Which was lucky for me, because even lifting my head would take everything I had. Am I done talking? The voice asked in disbelief. Are you going to help me or not? I forced out, staring at Lozzie's sleeping face. Help you? Yes. Obviously. I coughed again, winced and wheezed. Unless you're going to help me rescue Rain, there's no point talking to you. Far less listening. A dainty sigh, a petulant little huff. I could almost feel her rolling her eyes. Oh, you're so boring, she drawled in the same hissing mockery of a little girl's voice, but with all the malice drained. She shifted on the bed again, and in my mind's eye I saw a little chin resting in a little hand, a little pout on a sullen face. None of you are as fun as my Fliss. Completely unrepressed. If only I could get Kimberly alone, she might prove some sport. Or Evelyn. Oh, Evie, so wrapped up in all her fears and desires. What she thinks she wants isn't what she really wants at all. The demon voice sighed again. Working on that, I mumbled. What was that, dearie? Working on that. Oh, are you now? TCH, you'll probably screw it up. Or it'll have a happy little ending, and we'll all go home feeling sick. Another huff, more old woman than little girl. I do hope you fools and deviants don't let her die, that would be so droll. I tested my neck muscles, lifted my head. An inch off the bed and my vision swam, but I clung hard to consciousness. Had to help Rain. Got one arm half underneath me and had to stop, panting for breath despite the hollow ache in my chest. Oh come on. Don't pass out now, I won't have anybody to play with, the voice whined. What am I supposed to do here, talk to the arachnids? They're even worse than you humans, they don't want to do anything but eat and sleep. Did you know you've got rats living under the house, a family of 7? They want to get in but they haven't found a way yet. And there's a pair of great big crows eyeing your chimney. Even the wildlife in the city is boring, boring, boring. And that great big idiot you have downstairs is guarding the fridge, I swear she knows I'm here and she's winding me up. You've got so many sweets in there and I can't get at them dash. If you're not going to help me, I hissed, struggling to keep my head up, I'll make you. Oh, I'll help you, Heather. The parasite rolled her eyes again, I swear I could feel it without seeing. At least I can get a good love triangle out of you if you try hard enough. Or a love square. Is that a thing? Love rhomboid. Love dash. With Herculean effort, I swung myself at the source of the voice. Not a tackle, just controlled falling over, almost collapsing onto the bed as I grasped for her. I'd grab her and brain math her into whatever I needed. I'd done it to Zheng, I'd do it to this thing. I knew where Rain was and I would press gang every last bit of help I could. Explanations could wait. Nothing there. I landed on the bed sheets, badly. Sharp spike of pain up my spine. Winced through my teeth. Defeated, I lay on my back for several heartbeats, staring at the ceiling, kept conscious only by pain. Parasite? I eventually said, but she did not return. Another 6 or 7 heartbeats and I forced myself to sit up again, inch by painful inch, couldn't afford to fall asleep. Or unconscious now. I knew where Rain was, and I had to communicate it to the others. Wake Lozzie. How had she slept through that scratching, sticky voice? Perhaps she hadn't heard it at all. Perhaps that was the point. Parasite. I eyed the corners of the room. Did you make me angry to keep me awake? No answer. For a long moment I just sat there, kinked awkwardly, unwilling to lie back down but unable to lift an arm to wake Lozzie. When I finally worked up the energy to rub my stinging, aching eyeballs, the pain reached all the into the back of my head, as if my optical nerve itself was singed. My hand came back sticky with blood. I'd left a stain on the sheets. I let out a tiny laugh. I'd never been so happy to feel so much pain. To be alive, and me, and bleeding. My brush with the outer limits of hyperdimensional mathematics made reality seem as fragile as a soap bubble. Heather, the me I knew and understood in human terms, was a thin ghost of electrical signal and chemical reaction, skating across a bulb of gray meat inside my skull. But right now, I was sitting on a bed in the orange sunlight, alive. Rain was alive, and the relief was like morphine. And here was Lozzie, warm and dozing. Lozzie, I croaked. Lozzie. She grumbled. I waited another minute, or perhaps 2 or 10, it was hard to tell, gathering my strength. Then I used far too much energy to give her a hug. An awkward one, yes, with one arm and no leverage, but I had to do it, remind myself I was here, in the flesh. I straightened back up and shook her shoulder as best I could. Lozzie. She made a sleepy noise, distorted by the shaking. Wake up. I need you. That did the trick. Lozzie cracked one eye open, showed a hint of white. Didn't you hear any of that? I asked. Lozzie. At first I thought it was only her eye problems acting up, the permanently droopy eyelids of damaged extraocular muscles that I must ask her about someday. Lozzie. Her eyeball swiveled and her head jerked, her body following halfway to a sitting position, a puppet rediscovering its strings. She made a soft throat-clearing sound, blinked twice, and finally I was looking at Lozzie again, bleary from a nap. Lozzie. What was that? Are you okay? I'm fine. Energy saving. She pulled a big sleepy smile, rubbed her eyes to clear her vision, then realized what she was looking at. Her mouth fell open. Heather. Heather's all bloody, no. Vibrating with worry, she lifted the hem of her pink poncho to wipe the blood from my face. I screwed up my eyes and winced. It's fine. I had to do it, I said, too weak to resist. Lozzie, stop dash. No more blood, it's all okay now. It is. Gently, I took her hand. Couldn't have held her back if she'd pushed, but she understood and relented. Lozzie, I need you to listen. I know where Rain is. She sat up, rigid as a mongoose spotting a snake. Where? Where? I could have laughed at the sound she made, but we both jumped at the sudden noise of heavy booted feet stomping up the stairs. Only one person currently in the house walked like that, but the bedroom door opened to reveal a surprised Zheng stooped to peer at us both, and Preem waited primly by her side. Not a combination I'd expected. Zheng raised an eyebrow at me. Shaman. I'm okay, I croaked. Oh. Lazi lit up. Is it time? Preparations complete, Preem intoned, then turned and marched off down the hallway, apparently satisfied I wasn't in any real danger. Yes. Lazi beat a celebratory drum roll on the bed with both hands. I winced. Time for what? I asked. The wizards are ready, Zheng purred, then stepped into the bedroom and straightened up. The huge zombie directed a quizzical look in all directions, then wrinkled her nose. Zheng. I smell a rat, she rumbled. Yes, I sighed. That's about right. The parasite said hello. Ah, went Lazi. Oh. Is that why you're covered in your own vital fluids again, shaman? I shook my head. I did a thing. I need to tell everyone. Now. Time, Preem intoned again as she stepped back into view. She carried Evelyn in a close embrace, one arm under my unconscious friend's knees and the other supporting her back. Evelyn's head lolled on Preem's shoulder. She was drooling slightly. Even wrapped in blankets pulled from her bed, she looked so small and vulnerable, as fragile as I felt. A blank space hung where her right leg should be, and her withered left provided precious little body weight. My heart could barely take that sight. I bottled it up, for now. She's there. Right there. Right there. I know it. I jabbed the map with my finger again, then collapsed back into Zheng's waiting arms, my body begging for rest. The others all clustered around the drawing room table in Evelyn's magical workshop, save for Preem, still cradling Evelyn in her arms, standing by the completed device and waiting for the rest of us. Don't know that bit of Sherrowford. Twill clicked her tongue, peering close at the near-indecipherable map spread out on the huge table. She ran a finger along the street name Bar End Road and referred back to Google Maps on her phone, trying to match image to place. Third house along. Wow, this all looks real swanky. Yeah, look at this, rich people houses. This the place, Heather? Number 7. She waved the phone under my nose, but my eyes were already fluttering shut. I can't, I only know position, I tried to explain again. I don't know what it looks like. Lazi peered over my shoulder. I know that place. You do? Serious? Twill asked. The phone was withdrawn. Lived there for maybe 6 months when I was really little. Family place. Your family? Like, your brother? Twill asked, then huffed through clenched teeth. Shit. Maybe. Lazi chirped. I think I saw it too, once, Kimberly ventured from somewhere behind us, a safe distance from Zheng. Never went inside though. Some kind of safe house, maybe. Won't be safe, little wizard, Zheng purred. Her voice reverberated through the back of my skull, my head against the base of her chest. Not for the likes of you or me. Our only map that wasn't on a computer screen was unfortunately Evelyn's, the one she'd used to track the cult's pocket dimension spaces back during our first brush with them. Still covered in her red ink and scrawled notation and crossed out buildings and danger zones and connections, it barely resembled the city of Sherrowford at all, but I hadn't been up to squinting and scrolling on a phone. Zheng had carried me downstairs the same way Preem had carried Evelyn. I'd ignored everyone's shock and surprise at the bloody stains around my eyes, and demanded to be set down in front of the map. Now I'd done all I could, and my body screamed for sleep, rest, to let go. Zheng held me up on my feet, one huge arm around my chest, the other under an armpit. Don't care about safe, I croaked. I need her. A moment of silence. I felt glances passed back and forth, and cracked my eyelids to see. We can get her, Twill said with a guilty grimace. We totally can. But if we wake Evie first, she'll know what to do, right? She can help. I shook my head no, damn it, and the world span with it. Without my asking, Zheng scooped me up again, a dizzying trip into the air, and gently deposited me on the sofa, where I curled up and clenched down to halt a wave of nausea and dissociation. My vision wavered in and out of focus for a moment, then came back, along with everyone's voices. In no state to be mounting a rescue, is she? Kimberly was asking. We need to wake Say. We do, but, Twill said, hanging her head, racked with guilt. I could do it. Lozzie chirped. Oh dash. What about calling the dash? Kimberly never finished. Evelyn, Preem intoned. Yes, Evelyn, I hissed, my head aching. But Rain's alive, I have to dash. What I don't understand, Felicity's half-mumble somehow cut through the rest of us, clear and sharp despite the distortion of scarred lips. Is how you did whatever you did. How can you know so accurately? Just do, I hissed. I looked up at Felicity's one staring eye. She had her arms crossed, a curious, cold expression on her face. Judging and weighing meat on the slab. Had Evelyn seen that face, staring down at her with a syringe in one hand and a saw in the other? You're no mage, Heather, she mumbled. What are you? Incoherent anger welled in my chest, overcompensation for guilt. Flung out to the edge of my little monkey brain, as Zheng would call it, by exhaustion and fear for my friends, I bared my teeth at her. Felicity blinked at me, and the cold curiosity passed, replaced with trepidation and confusion. Heather. She does magic with her head, no wands required, Twill grunted. It's just how she works. Can we focus on waking Evie now? She does what? I'm sorry. Me too, Lozzie hooted from her safe distance in the kitchen doorway, trailing off quietly. Rain, I insisted. Her name was enough to make my point. I need to dash. We won't be at this much longer than another half hour, Felicity said. I have to dash, I panted, squeezing my eyes shut, thinking of Rain, alone and trapped, alive for how much longer? Somebody has to dash. We could split our forces, Felicity said gently. If I have any say in the matter. Send the demons for her. Evelyn, Preem intoned again. Delegate, shaman, Zheng purred, so softly only I could hear, and a light bulb went on in my mind. Everyone shut up, I croaked, worked a hand out in front of me and gave the entire room an unintentional glare. Hand me my phone. Zheng raised an eyebrow. This wasn't what she'd expected when she'd advised me. I ignored her, no energy for debate right now. Somebody pressed my phone into my hand. I pulled up the contacts list, pressed the most recently added, and let it ring on speakerphone, too tired to hold it up to my ear. Didn't think you'd contact me so soon, Detective Webb answered on the third ring. She lowered her voice, and in the background I heard office murmurs, the clack of a keyboard, muffled speech far away. Or are you just testing my number? That is you, Heather. Yes, I croaked. I found my girlfriend. Oh. Oh, that's good news then, right? She laughed, half exasperated. Won't be needing the missing persons I literally just put in. Great. Hooray. Not hooray. I know where she is. In a house. Kidnapped. We can't go right now. Doing, magic. Probably best you stick to that part then. Her voice dropped to a hiss. The background noise dimmed to nothing as she cupped the speaker. Where's the address? Address. Twill. Twill held her own phone in front of my eyes. I rattled off the address, heard the scratching of a pen. Twill read it back to make sure. Hey there, werewolf, Nicole said. Yes, I know the street. That's a nice neighborhood. I'm gonna have to play this safe, no warrant, but I can fudge things a bit if I can get eyes on something or someone relevant. Please, I grunted. You'll have company too. Oh. Soon as we're done. Gotcha. Call you if I see anything weird. Or your girl. Please. She ended the call. Before I even lowered the phone, Jin growled. I'll go. She surprised me by crouching down on her haunches, eye to eye. I will go to this house, shaman. When we're done here. I frowned at her. Why do you care? Because I'm with you, shaman. That would be a lie. She grinned slowly, showing all her teeth. No, because I want to catch Sarika before your tame policewoman does. They'll throw her in a cell. I want to eat her heart. Behind her, Twill pulled a face. Felicity frowned at Zheng as if watching some cartoon jungle savage, and Kimberly turned a little green around the gills. Over past the kitchen door, still keeping a safe distance from all the upsetting magical detritus, Lozzie looked away too. I didn't care. Rain's safety was more important than who or what rescued her. If it took a tame police detective and an emancipated demon, so be it. I did not have to be present. I only had to ensure it happened. Why not now? I croaked. Zheng cast a glance at the magical apparatus which filled the room. You may have need of me. This is going to work, Felicity said. Perfectly. Zheng shrugged and stood up, talking to me. Do not count on me, shaman. There will be things in there, like me and unlike me. I go to scout, not to conquer. She gave me a slow, serious nod. Wake your magician friend. Let us both hope she is as skilled as you imply. You seriously gonna go back out into the streets looking like that? Twill asked. Looking like what, Langren? All bloody and stuff. Twill had a good point. Zheng still wore the clothes she'd arrived in, covered in dried blood and concrete dust, one arm of her trench coat missing. She was 7 feet tall and built like a muscle worshipper's wet dream, and there was no way she'd pass unnoticed down a Sherriford street. Moving without traveling, she purred. Without the shaman in my wake. Spooky, I grunted, not really caring right now. Zheng shrugged, huge and rippling, and stepped away to lounge against the wall. That's it then? Twill asked. We ready to rock? To rock, Preem agreed. I cast a judgmental eye over Felicity's completed mechanism, as much as I could stand with the pain in my head and the weakness inside my chest. The spell to extract Evelyn's unwelcome visitor consisted of 2 components. The first, the ceiling-height pyramidal brass cage, had blossomed while I was upstairs. Many of the spaces between the pipes were filled out with thin copper slats, each of those punched with holes in precise, geometrical patterns. It had something of an antique computer about it, a difference engine with all the moving parts missing. In the open space beneath the pyramid's square base, a nest of pillows waited to receive Evelyn's unconscious body. The second component was inside the magic circle Kimberly had spent hours painstakingly painting onto the floorboards, parts of it patched and altered with masking tape, other bits scrawled on sheets of pinned paper in blood or other fluids. The unbroken triple ring of esoteric symbols and inhuman language stung my eyes, but it was only a means to an end. A real cage. Inside the circle lay a clay figure on its back. Wet and rough, flat and genderless. Not quite life-size, maybe only 4 feet tall, with tube-shaped arms and legs and a ball for a head, finger-poked holes for eyes and a slash for a mouth. Twill had spread a sheet underneath the thing, but I think the state of the floorboards was a little beyond saving at this point. Is it safe? I asked. Safe? Kimberly echoed. That's a good question. Is it? Should we all stay in here, or leave? Felicity caught the direction of my gaze. She nodded at the circle. The circle will contain it, whatever it is, and giving it a body will allow us to, she cleared her throat and waved a hand. Smash it up, Twill said. Yes, well put. Giving it a body will allow us to destroy it. Or question it. Or whatever you like, really. I only suggest not breaking the circle. We know this outsider got into Evelyn via a remote connection which you were both looking at, which means it might have some kind of sight transmission vector, but the circle will block that too. Yeah, I get to punch a golem to death, cool, Twill said. Can we start now? Yes, Preem said, voice ringing like a bell. Almost. Felicity held up a gloved hand. Her good eye slid across me, hesitated, then turned to Kimberly. There's one last thing we'll need, just in case. Kim, I'd like you to go to my car, please, and bring me the toolbox from the back. She held out her car keys. Okay. Kimberly took the keys like a bundle of spiders. Twill, if you please, Felicity continued. It's probably best if you go with her, too. It's not safe out of doors right now, is it? Unless you happen to be a demon host, Felicity gave a little sigh and tried to smile, but she was bungling this trick. Even exhausted beyond words, I saw through it a mile away. Thankfully, so did Twill. She squinted at Felicity. I can go get your toolbox. Toss me the keys, Kim. No, no. Felicity cleared her throat. Kimberly should go. I'm going to make one last alteration to the circle, and it may prove upsetting to sensitive minds. Twill squinted harder. Felicity was too obvious. You're a bad liar, I croaked. Pants on fire. Lozzie shot from the doorway. Yeah, the hell is your game? Twill asked. Felicity cringed, shrinking back, a vampire exposed to sunlight. She shot an uncomfortable look at Zheng, who was eyeing her with silent predation. All right. I would like to speak to Heather alone, for a few minutes, without an audience. You're having a laugh, said Twill. What about? I asked, curiosity piqued. We're still on a time limit. No, I am not kidding. Felicity swallowed. She glanced at Preem, still holding Evelyn, and at Zheng. They can stay, if you want some kind of insurance that I'm not going to betray you. This is between me and Heather, but I don't care what a demon host thinks. Twill opened her mouth to complain, but I got there first with a wordless hiss of frustration. Fine. Heather, come on, Twill hissed. I want to hear what she has to say. Preem and Zheng will be right here. Here, Preem echoed. Shaman. There you go. Lozzie, I called to her softly. You too. Just for a minute. Right. Felicity raised her chin in defiant shame as the others went into the kitchen. Twill gave her one last warning glare before she shut the door on us. How well does this house insulate sound? Felicity asked, eyeing the door. Well enough. Say your bit. Felicity fixed me with a stare, as intense from her blind eye as from the healthy one. For a moment, the words stuck in her throat. She appeared to you, didn't she? I raised an eyebrow. Or at least I thought I did, almost too worn out to tell. She. You know what I'm talking about. Your parasite. Felicity swallowed, controlling herself with an effort of will. Fear. What did she say? How much did she tell you? How can you tell I met her? I asked. I felt it, when she decided to manifest. What did she tell you? I shook my head, squinting at Felicity's borderline panic, too tired to draw her out her with a cruel lie. Not much. Tried to taunt me about rain, then went off on a tangent. Seemed kind of petulant. Is that all? Felicity blew out a long shuddering breath. She nodded. That's all. She exists to torment me. I thought she may attempt to turn you all against me, that's all. I grumbled. While we're alone, I have a question for you, too. Might not get another chance. Yes. Yes. Felicity blinked at me, distracted by her own relief. You're the doctor, aren't you? And with those few words, all Felicity's focus of the last few hours drained away, along with the color in her face. She went gray and pale, a hollow space forming behind her good eye, the same way she'd looked when she'd first set eyes on Evelyn this morning. I never finished medical school, if that's what you mean. Not a doctor, never made it. Evelyn said the doctor who performed her amputation was an associate of her mother's. Operated drunk. Pain, shame, self-loathing, all twisted and attenuated by Felicity's unique scarring, as if cut off halfway across her face. It gave the terrible illusion that she could only half feel, never concluding, never ending, no closure. You try taking a bone saw to a 9-year-old girl while sober, she hissed at me, voice barely above a whisper, jaw clenched. She swallowed, hard, as if she couldn't get her own saliva down. You could have dash. Could have what? She hissed again, I flicking at the closed door and then at Preem, at the wrapped bundle in her arms. She ignored Jing completely. Refused. Her mother would have done it herself, given her too much morphine or failed to tie off an artery. I had no choice. You wanted to save her, I said, not unkindly, my own anger blunted in the face of this toxic self-hate. I saw myself in her. Felicity sniffed, gestured at her own burned face, gave a sardonic laugh. It's not exactly difficult. I was supposed to be an older sister, something like that, but my courage failed. I tried to swan back into her life after her mother's death, but she knows what kind of monster I am. I can't make it right. This, she gestured at the spell she'd built to save Evelyn. Doesn't make it right. But I'm doing it anyway. I understand, you care, you need to know why. But why doesn't matter. Just that we do it regardless, I said. Felicity nodded, couldn't meet my eyes. A knock sounded on the door. You two done yet? Twill called out. Almost, I croaked. I'm glad she got to grow up, Felicity murmured, looking at Evelyn's face. Preem said nothing, no hint of accusation in her eyes as she watched the mage. I only wish she hadn't taken after her mother. At all. Nobody likes magic. Hyperdimensional mathematics is scary enough, and that's confined to the inside of my own head. With true magic, the mechanics are all on display, violating reality in full view of our 5 senses, smuggling the principles of outside into our world through the cracks in the programming, God's mistakes, the rat holes in existence. Even the smallest and most simple magical spell comes with a cost to both sanity and physics, let alone on the scale of complexity Felicity was about to attempt. With Evelyn deposited beneath the brass pyramid and tucked up safely inside her sheets, Felicity had advised the rest of us to step back to a safe distance, though Preem silently refused and Jing scoffed. I didn't have the energy to move from the sofa, clutching my mobile phone in hope that Detective Webb would call back and tell me she'd found Rain. Somebody gave me a spare blanket, wrapped it around my shoulders and neck. Lozzie, I think, before she retreated to peer from the kitchen doorway again, more wary than the rest of us. Felicity closed her eyes and muttered a few words under her breath. For a moment I thought that was it, that she'd begun without ceremony. Then she took a deep breath and asked, "Is everyone ready? Once I start, it'll be dangerous to stop." I realized Felicity had been offering up a prayer. To what, I never found out. Yeah, go, Twill said. Get on with it, wizard, Jing rumbled. Felicity flinched. I don't want to watch it, Lozzie stage whispered from the doorway. All right. Another sharp sigh of self-preparation. All right. Here I go. She was true to her word, from the first scrap of Latin out of her mouth to the final sweating, blood-spitting hiss of pain forced from her raw throat. The whole process took less than 15 minutes, according to the clock on my phone. If Felicity had come here seeking punishment for the past, she got it, but the backwash hit the rest of us too. She started with Latin, a string of commands followed with a sort of repeated mantra that rose in her throat to a droning sound, vibrating inside my skull. Both her hands gripped specific points of the brass pyramid. Twill winced as the sound grew, and Lozzie retreated almost completely into the kitchen, hiding behind the door like a cat spooked by a vacuum cleaner. Kimberly hunched, shaking and turning her eyes away before the main event arrived. Felicity left Latin far behind, skirted the limits of the human vocal apparatus with a language that sounded as if spoken by a monster, from underwater, while gagged. Glottal stops, clicks, rolling rattles. The air seemed to hiss as if trying to reject the words. Lozzie clamped her hands over her ears. Jean grit her teeth and made fists. The temperature in the room began to drop. Felicity had to pause more than once to spit gobbets of bloody phlegm into the bucket we'd used to mix the clay, her breathing distorted by what the magic was doing to her lungs and throat. She wiped her mouth on a handkerchief, forged on through the next verse as flash frost formed on the brass and our breath made plumes of steam in the growing cold. "Can't take this," Twill hissed, one eye squeezed shut with the other half open. I grunted. The effect was unique. Felicity's voice never rose a single decibel above normal speech. She didn't work herself up into a frenzy of chanting, seemed almost affectless as she recited the invisible mechanics of her spell, but it hurt. It hurt my ears, it hurt the air itself. It hurt reality. Towards the end, Evelyn began to choke. Jerking on the floor, snorting from the world's worst sleep apnea. Preen had to catch Twill around the middle to prevent her interrupting. The choking didn't bother Felicity, and Evelyn did not start to turn blue. The change was so subtle, almost invisible. I'd expected something to emerge from Evelyn. Perhaps a spider would climb out of her mouth, or a black cloud of evil-looking mist would issue from her lungs, or a silent film phantom would rise from her body. I should have learnt by now, magic did not work like that. No fireballs and black cats, no neat answers to one's expectations. A trickle in the air. A distortion, like heat haze. It reared up like a snake, but I'm not sure all of us saw it. Felicity did, because she flinched. Like water drawn downhill and into a drain, it slid across the room and burrowed into the waiting vessel of clay. A tapeworm. A real parasite. That's what it reminded me of. Evelyn sat bolt upright, eyes still closed, snorting out a terminated snore. Half in surprise and half in exhaustion, Felicity let go of the brass pyramid and fell over on her backside. Evie. Did it work? Twill pulled free of Preem. Let go, I suspect. Shit, is she herself? Yes. Felicity nodded, staring at Evelyn, trying to get to her feet on shaking legs. Yes, it's in there. She pointed at the clay figure. Won't be able to get out. Still sitting upright with her eyes closed, Evelyn made a sound that the uninitiated might have mistaken for non-human, a groan like an irritated bear exiting hibernation far too early. She pushed and twisted an arm free of her sheets and rubbed numbly at her own face. Her mouth opened. A dry click. We all held our breath. I have to take a shit, Evelyn croaked. Evie. Twill lit up. Yeah, that's her. Evie. Twill went down on her knees and all but shoved the brass pyramid off Evelyn, then grabbed her around the shoulders in an unexpected hug. Arg. Get off me, you bloody mongrel. Evelyn half fought, struggling to free another arm and push against Twill's embrace. Discreetly, Felicity picked herself up off the floor and backed away, caught between staring at Evelyn and a hasty retreat, a shy and pained look in her eyes. Evie, I added, too exhausted and too flush with relief to realize what would happen when she opened her eyes. Welcome back. WL, what? What is, arg, I said get off. Her eyes squinted open, sore and unused against the sudden light. She pulled a grimace to end all grimaces. Why am I dash? Kimberly put her hands together. Oh, it worked, oh, thank the goddess. Preem seemed unconcerned, having moved to stare at the now inhabited clay golem. Zheng was staring at it too. Evelyn blinked several times, struggling to get her eyes around what she was seeing, the huge brass cage towering over her, Twill ecstatic with relief, 7 feet of worryingly familiar zombie muscle, Lozzie's elfin face peering through the doorway. To her credit, she took all that in her stride, scowling and dehydrated as she was. Some freaky shit's been going down, Twill was trying to tell her. But you're alright, you're gonna be alright. I turned to Felicity, far too late, and hissed, leave the room. Heather. Evelyn said, and saw my exhausted, blood-rimmed eyes. You look like how I feel. And Felicity, caught in the act of trying to back out of the room, but too enraptured by the sight of Evelyn awake. The two mages made eye contact. Felicity's hands went up and her head went down. I'm leaving, I'm leaving, I'm leaving. Yes, that would be for the best, I hissed. Evelyn froze, but for a moment I thought it was all going to turn out okay. After all, she had just woken from what I assume was the single longest sleep of her life, in desperate need of food and drink and a sit on the toilet. She was out of energy, befuddled and drained, wrapped in a sheet and luckily with nothing close at hand to throw, no lethal weapons nearby, and certainly no magic at her fingertips. Not a dream then, she whispered. Evelyn damn well near managed to throw the whole of Twill at Felicity. Get out. I'm gone, yes. I'm so sorry Evelyn, I'm so sorry, I dash. Out. All of you, out. Evie. Out. Evie, I tried again, too exhausted to raise my voice above the pandemonium. Felicity was obeying the screeched command without protest, stumbling into the kitchen to avoid the white-hot fury croaking from Evelyn's sandpaper throat and to avoid her own shame. For once in Evelyn's life, anger failed to cover her real reaction, defensive fear and shaking panic. The sight of Felicity's face had succeeded where confusion and disorientation and Zheng, towering over her had not. Despite nearly 12 hours of demon-possessed coma, for 20 seconds Evelyn fought like a cornered fox. Twill had not expected to be used as a makeshift projectile, and that was the only reason Evelyn's meager strength managed to push her halfway across the floorboards in a clatter of detritus and surprised werewolf. She'd tried to return. Evelyn lashed out. Get off. Get off. Evie, it's me. Ow. It's me. It's Twill. Evelyn stopped trying to hit her, staring, blinking, throat bobbing with a swallow dry as the desert. She tried to draw her legs up, then realized one of them wasn't there, slipped, half fell. Twill caught her. Get off me. I said get out, are you deaf? Evelyn screamed in Twill's face. Out. All right, all right. Twill threw her hands up in surrender. Evelyn glared at her, at Kimberly, at me, at the walls, at the open doorway to the kitchen. Twill retreated and Kimberly scurried past her, almost as terrified as Evelyn but hiding it far better. Lozzie ducked out of the way, vanishing into the kitchen, covering her head as if under bombardment. Evelyn cast around, wild-eyed, propping herself up on one hand. Where the bloody hell is my leg? Upstairs, Preem intoned. Evelyn flinched, jerked around to find the source of Preem's voice. The doll demon stood perfectly still, staring down at the clay golem. Zheng was doing the same, though with a little less stillness. Then get it. Preem did not obey. Preem did not move a muscle. Preem. Damn you, I dash. Evie, I croaked at her again. I said out. Evelyn whirled on me, lurched on the spot, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. She blinked once, almost as if surprised to see me. Let me, I can't dash. Shaman. Zheng purred. Yes, that means you too, you ruddy great thing, Evelyn spat, turning on her. Kill me or get out. She jerked an arm at the door, muscles not working properly. I stay right here, wizard, Zheng purred. Evie, I tried again. Get dash. Evie, I can't walk unaided right now. Evelyn opened her mouth to shout at me again, then closed it and swallowed, wincing at her dry mouth. She looked from me to the brass pyramid, to the huge magic circle on the floor, to the clay golem and up at Zheng, brows knitting in thought. She even looked at Twill with her hands up, waiting at safe distance in the doorway, then down at herself. Her brain finally allowed her to see what was in front of her eyes. "Makes two of us," she said, eventually. I grunted. "Are you safe to approach now?" Twill ventured. "No," Evelyn snapped, then faltered. Not right now." "Okay. Cool, we're cool," Twill said. "It's gonna be okay. We're okay." "What is she doing here?" Evelyn hissed through clenched teeth. I didn't have to ask who she was. Evelyn's eyes flicked to the doorway again, and the implication of Felicity hiding out there beyond sight. "It was the only way," I said. "I'm sorry. We thought you were going to die." "Of what?" "All I remember is the dreams this was Rain's bloody idea, wasn't it?" "Where the hell is she?" "Kidnapped." Evelyn didn't have anything to say to that. She stared at me, a slow change coming across her face, a falling away of the anger as distraught horror peered back at me. She looked at Twill. Twill nodded. She looked at Preem looked back. She looked at Zheng. "And what in all hell is this thing doing here?" she asked. "And talking?" "Wizard," Zheng rumbled by way of greeting. "Best not call her a thing," I suggested. Yes, Evelyn waved a vague hand, then rubbed the bridge of her nose. "What the hell is going on?" No, not you," she pointed at Twill. "Heather, you tell me." "Explain." I told her. As I told her, the clay golem began to steam. The matter could not contain what now lay within. Preem and Zheng both stood on guard, one impassive, hands folded, back straight, the other brooding and flexing her hands and then finally squatting down like a Russian gangster about to threaten a late-paying debtor. Short, to the point, the skeleton of facts bare of details. Everything since she'd passed out last night. So absurd when put into plain language, but I lacked the energy for editorializing. Whisked away to Wonderland, but saved by my lost sister and Lozzie. Woke up in a building possessed by the memory of Alexander Lilburn's body, and freed a giant zombie. Wave hello to Zheng, yes, that's right. Rain's been kidnapped and we had 2 corpses on our hands, and oh by the way we have a Sherriford police force detective on our side now, because I broke her mind. Felicity was our only choice for waking you from a coma, and there's a demon in that lump of clay behind you. Any questions?" Evelyn did not have any questions. "Then you woke up," I ended. "And through Twill." "Yeah." "Ow," Twill added. Evelyn squeezed her eyes shut and put a hand to her face. "I can't deal with this all at once." "Yeah," Twill said. "You're telling us." Evie, I'm glad you're okay. That's what matters. We'd probably know that by now." Evelyn tried to stretch her shoulders and let out a grunt of pain. "Thought it was all a bad dream." "You were aware?" "Oh, shit," Twill whispered. Evelyn waved a hand, brushing the cobwebs away from her mind. "Fever dreams, Twill, you want to make yourself useful." Twill visibly perked up. Yeah, what do you need?" "Go get my leg." "Right you are." "Please," Evelyn added as Twill left. "Evie." "Not in front of her," Evelyn hissed. "Fever dreams, but yes. Wasn't like when I was little. Not conscious, no communication, just," she waved incoherently at her own skull. "And then I wake up and see her, and none of it was a dream." Evelyn swallowed hard again, dry as sand. "Think I was winning though. Bastard thing. What was it like?" "I wasn't playing chess against it in my head, that's for sure." We shared exhausted silence for a long moment. Evelyn squinted in dehydrated pain, trying to hold together the shreds of her dignity. Out in the kitchen, Lozzie peered around the door frame. Evelyn looked up and Lozzie froze. "Oh. You," Evelyn croaked. Lozzie retreated again. I took several deep breaths and roused myself. "Zheng," I said. "Time to go." Zheng didn't respond to me, but instead looked up at Preem. A silent communication passed between the demon hosts, and Preem resumed watching the unmoving golem. Zheng stood up and rolled her shoulders like a mountain shrugging. "Shaman. Extra points if you bring her back," I managed. Zheng flashed a crescent of teeth, and stalked out of the room. I saw Lozzie scurry after her briefly, heard a muffled exchange of voices, and the front door open and close, locks rattling. "You are going to have to explain her in more detail," Evelyn said. "Yes. A lot more detail." "I know." Evelyn disentangled one arm from her bundled sheet and held out a hand to me. "Help me up, you're going to have to be my hobbling stick. I can't wait for my leg. Evie, I can't stand up unaided right now." "Oh. Oh, yes. Well." She glanced over at Preem instead. "And I think she's occupied with guard duty," I said. "Quite." Evelyn grimaced. "That wasn't empty rhetoric earlier. I need to get up or we're going to have another crisis." I'm dying for a shit." "Oh. If I hadn't been so tired, I would have laughed. And I'm not going alone. Not with her inside the house. Her and her vile demonic pet." Over the next half hour the group drifted apart, human wreckage flung far and wide by centrifugal force, denied the anchor of coherent leadership with me out of commission. Twill helped Evelyn to the bathroom, to the sound of much complaining and grumbling, half of it performative and half of it real. Kimberly vanished upstairs somewhere, as far from the magic as possible, to light up and fill her bloodstream with THC. Didn't blame her. Lozzie flitted about, airy and distant, a confusing half-notion on the edge of my vision. Felicity kept her head so far down she was practically subterranean. I think she actually went outdoors to sit in her car. Pressure and time brought us back together, two things we now had in abundance. Pressure, time, and morbid fascination. At first it was only Preem and I, me hunched over on the old sofa, clutching my phone in nervous hope, trapped halfway between exhausted sleep and sleepless fear. Preem stood on guard over the occupied magic circle, her eyes locked on the gently steaming clay golem as it began to change. Lozzie came next, venturing back into the magical workshop to rouse me with water and a peanut butter sandwich. My little angel in a poncho, bringing protein and hydration. I drank the water, and forced down several bites of the sandwich, though it tasted like cardboard and sat in my stomach like lead. I assumed Lozzie would be driven off by the sight of the thing in the circle, as it slopped and slid and pulled itself into a sitting position like a drunken paraplegic, but I'd underestimated her constitution, how she was used to all this. She settled on the sofa, head against my shoulder. "It's like claymation," she whispered, as if we were watching a film and she didn't want to talk over the dialogue. The outsider in clay began to explore the limits of its prison, trapped inside the triple-layered magic circle. Were the changes a response to imprisonment, or was it warping its vessel into something? Okay. I nodded. Stupid question. But I am alive. Which is good, all things considered. Thank you. I was so worried about you, I croaked, let my eyes close for a second of rest. Yes, yes. I gather everyone was. Welcome home, Preem said. We all stared at her. Evelyn frowned. You had a similar experience, no? She asked, but Preem just stared back. Preem was very protective I started. TSSS, Evelyn hissed, frowning and embarrassed. I know. Twill told me already. The bundle of rotting squid inside the circle lashed its tentacles back and forth, reaching up to the ceiling and filling the invisible cylinder of its prison, before subsiding in defeat once more, having found no egress. Can it hear us? I asked. No ears, Evelyn said. Unless it figures out how to grow some. Or maybe it has other sensory apparatus. Maybe those tentacles. Who gives a shit right now? Your Tenny doesn't have ears, but then pneumosomatic life isn't the same as things from outside. Wish I could ask it why it's here, I murmured. Evelyn frowned at me like I'd suggested skinning my own face. If you want to lose your mind, go right ahead. It's from the eye. It'll know things. Things? Yes, I'm certain it will, but I'd sooner rummage through the thoughts of a cannibal psychopath. I think I should try, I said quietly. Evelyn shook her head, huffed, and crossed her arms. After all, here was an emissary from my true foe. The Sherrowford cult was nothing really. Incompetent and subverted, couldn't even hold on to their greatest asset Zheng while I escaped their clutches in a single morning. They had rain, yes, and that terrified me still, but in a normal way, a human way, a fluke, a stroke of bad luck. If the Eye's lousy thing impersonator hadn't attacked us they'd have never gotten past rain with their kneecaps intact. Sarika worried me a little. Wasn't like Alexander. He'd been full of himself and his power, and that arrogance had ended him, but Sarika wasn't a megalomaniac. Potentially capable, potentially cunning. But she didn't matter either. Darkness loomed behind her. Ever since Rain had first drawn the fractal on my arm and the dreams had stopped, I'd assumed the Eye was done, blocked, passive. We'd firewalled it off from my mind, kept it at bay, bought time and life so I could prepare to save my sister. But now? Now it sent the lousy thing to take me away. It infested the minds of what was left of the Sherrowford cult, left a tripwire trap in Alexander's corpse, disabled Preem and sent one of its minions to possess Evelyn. One opening. Alexander Lilban had given the Eye one opening, made a bad deal, and it had almost managed to destroy me and mine in less than 24 hours. If there was a way to communicate with this outsider, this shard of the Eye, its minion, an unfeeling animal, whatever it was, I was going to find out. And I was going to hurt it until I understood why. I screwed up, didn't I? Evelyn sighed heavily. I got arrogant, and I got. Wasn't your fault, I croaked. Lozzie bit her lip and watched, chin still on my shoulder, her weight and heat against my side. Yes it is, Evelyn grumbled. I underestimated this, all of this. Broke half my own goddamn rules. Never underestimate. Never. We didn't know the Eye was involved, I said. Doesn't matter. I got sloppy. I don't deserve to be alive, I should be dead. No you shouldn't, Lozzie said softly. Evelyn just grunted and waved a hand. I pulled myself together as best I could, brought my thoughts back to the present, reined in my fears, and said, I'm sorry about Felicity. I blinked at her for a moment, then waggled my mobile phone. The detective. And Zheng. Remember? Of course I bloody well remember. Hard not to remember 7 feet of zombie. That's it. It's not like I can stand up. Evelyn grumbled her disapproval, scowling into empty space, radiating irritation. She crossed and uncrossed her arms, rubbed at the place her prosthetic leg attached to her flesh, lay her walking stick across her legs and put it down again, and then finally turned back to me. Where is she now? Rain. No, Felicity, Evelyn snapped. Who else would I be talking about? I shrugged, slowly, painfully. Think she went out to her car. Hasn't come back in. Good. Evelyn took a deep breath, blew it out slowly. Good. She better stay there. You hear me, Preem? She comes back and you throw her out. Throw her into traffic, even better. Preem did not respond. I'm really sorry, Evie, I said. I didn't figure it out until 5 minutes before she did the spell. Evelyn hit me with a frown like a sledgehammer. Figure what out? I squinted hard, tried to read the shivering signs underneath Evelyn's exterior. She was the doctor who took your leg, no. I lowered my voice, shot a nervous glance at Lozzie. True, Evelyn said, voice tight. Evie. What story did she feed you? Evelyn hissed. Altruism? Forgiveness? She tell you what she really is, HM? Heather, that woman was obsessed with me, when I was a child. I went cold inside. She Evie? No, not like that, she hissed. She was never alone with you, I blurted out. Always one of us here. Good. We lapsed into silence. My mind raced. Evie, I would never have let her into the house, if dash. Yes, I'm not angry at you, Heather, Evelyn swallowed a mouthful of acid. Finally got her chance, didn't she? Pretending that she's anything but a blood-soaked butcher. She said dash. I don't want to know what she dash. That saving you won't make it right, I finished. I'm sorry. Don't be, Evelyn sighed heavily. I'm alive, aren't I? You do know what she is though, don't you? Her and her vile little demonic sex pet. Yes, I told you, wait, what? I found, in the depths of physical and emotional exhaustion, that I could still feel surprise. Evie, I'm sorry, sex pet. She carries on a relationship with it. Evelyn rolled her eyes. What, she didn't tell you? Why am I not surprised? I recalled that dripping sulfur voice, speaking through a mouth of knives and darkness, a little girl from hell, and seriously adjusted my impression of Felicity. My skin crawled. You must be joking. Evelyn just stared at me, as exhausted as I was. You're not joking, I said. Oh. God. Yes. Evie, you. Yes. The sound of Twill descending the stairs mercifully forestalled any further speculation. I'm going to have to apologize to her, Evelyn murmured. I hit her, didn't I? Twill. You did. God damn it, she hissed. She'll understand, I tried. She'll forgive. She's good at that. Just tell her the truth. The whole truth. If you feel like it. She swallowed. Deserves a lot better than the likes of me, she hissed, so quietly I barely heard. Harmless. Caged, Evelyn grunted, and held out a hand. Give those here. Right you are. Evelyn popped the lid off the pill bottle, shook 2 unmarked white tablets into her hand, and swallowed them dry. She tucked the bottle away in a pocket. That thing is so weird looking, Twill was saying. Thank you, Evelyn whispered, far too quietly. Twill looked round. Sorry. She said, thank you for bringing her pills, I spoke up, too tired to watch these two do this dance right now, all my caution to the wind. She's grateful, and she likes your company, and is relieved to be alive, and I'd even wager she's happy you were there when she woke up, and dash. Heather, Evelyn spat, going red in the face. Twill blinked in surprise, eyebrows halfway up her forehead. Lozzie practically vibrated with tension, I think she understood instantly. You dash. I stared back, numb and uncaring, or at least telling myself I was numb and uncaring. Rain has been kidnapped and might die. Stop stalling. Tell her. Not dash, Evelyn hissed. Not now. Then when? I asked. It's right in front of you, Evie. When are you going to reach out and take it? Twill frowned like a dog confronted by algebra. What the hell are you two talking about? Hello? Can we focus on, the squid monster we've got in here? Later, Evelyn grunted at me, then scowled at Twill. And that thing doesn't matter, no more than a lump of removed earwax. Twill snorted and shook her head. Right. Sure. Evelyn rolled her eyes, then nodded down at the mobile phone still clutched in my hand. You've got this police detective on Finding Rain, haven't you? I hope. She shook her head. A police detective. My mother would have shit herself blind at that. Her name's Nicole, I said, trying to distract myself from thinking about Rain. I think you'd get on. A police detective, really? Evelyn's voice dripped with sarcasm. She's very bitter. Like I said, I think you'd get on. Evelyn snorted, a derisive dismissal from anybody else, practically affection from her. Lozzie stifled a giggle. Sounds about right, Twill muttered. We can organize, Evelyn said. Give me a minute to sit still, wait for my pills to do their job, and we'll organize. You know where Rain is, and we're going to go get her. Though anything I can call up pales in comparison to what you've already sent. You mean Jing? I asked. What else could I possibly mean? I'm certainly not talking about Sherrowford's police force. Is she really that dangerous? Evelyn managed to give me a look like an incredulous schoolmarm. What do you think, Heather? Well, I think she's a 7-foot superhuman cannibal, yes, but I struggled through the last 12 hours of memory, blurred by exhaustion and coffee. When I freed her, and then I called this Sarika woman to try to intimidate her, she acted like freeing Jing was irresponsible. Evelyn offered. Yes. Yes, quite. Is it? Evelyn shrugged. Most likely. How old is she? Quite old. I think. I haven't asked. You can't be rude to a demon. I think you can, I protested. Maybe. Point is, something as old as her should have gone mad long ago. That's what happens to these demons, Heather. They can't deal with reality. Better than that freak show Castle last time we did something like this, she said. Castle, Nicole said with a sigh. A statement, not a question. Yeah, a castle. Long story. We all going straight in then, or what? Preem and I could do it alone, you know. What's the plan? Good question, Evelyn said from the passenger seat, and looked pointedly at Nicole. Her face was side-lit in the darkness by distant street lighting, like a monster in a puppet show. Hey, that's up to you wizards, the detective said, raising her hands from the steering wheel. She looked more rumpled and shaken than when I'd last seen her, as if she'd spent the last hour being violently ill. That's why you're here, right? You deal with whatever caused that, she thumbed at the house. Then I call in the cavalry for the mundane stuff. Isn't that the plan? What I mean, detective, Evelyn said, is we need more information first. I opened my mouth to repeat myself, but a sudden wave of dizziness took me, a throbbing pulse of blood in my head. Shouldn't be here. Even with caffeine and pills and bloody-minded determination, I was fading, I was weak, and I was a liability. Right. Right. Information. That's something I can do. Nicole nodded, took a deep breath. Evelyn, right? You look pretty together for a woman who was in a coma this morning. Nicole offered Evelyn her hand, and to my surprise Evelyn shook it. Trust me, detective, I feel like living shit, Evelyn grunted. Why didn't we get handshakes this morning? Twill asked. Seem to recall I was too busy screaming, Nicole said. Or trying to arrest you on suspicion of murder. Evelyn snorted and shook her head. Even I could tell the humor was forced. Nicole glanced back at me, the fragile thing shivering and swallowing in the back seat. So, who's in charge right now? Heather or you? Evelyn caught my eye. I shook my head. Nobody's in charge, Evelyn said hesitantly, then cleared her throat. We decide as a group. There's no spirits, I repeated, loud as I could. Nicole blinked at me. Evelyn twisted in the front passenger seat, hindered by her spine and walking stick, and frowned hard. There's no spirits, I said. On the house? Evelyn asked. Then it's warded somehow. Potentially bad news for us, but not entirely unexpected. No, no. I shook my head. The whole street. Last few streets. As we drove up, they thinned out. Heading away. Animals fleeing a forest fire. Evelyn went quite still. Nicole looked between us, confused and lost. Twill made a sound like a broken speaker. That's bad, right? No, it's wonderful, Evelyn said. Great news. The local fauna is fleeing, that means nothing untoward at all. What do you think, Twill? Twill raised her hands in apology. Heather, Evelyn snapped. Why didn't you say something earlier? Because I'm exhausted and scared and thinking about Rain. We need to go in there, Evie. We need to get her out. Quickly. Evelyn swallowed hard, then sucked on her teeth. We still need more information. Detective? Spirits. Fleeing animals. Okay, Nicole echoed me with a sigh. What does that mean? Another throb of blood in my head, like I'd run a marathon today. I winced. Information, detective. Evelyn clicked her fingers. What did you see? I already told you on the phone. 7 bodies, I think, or parts of them at least, in a sort of lounge on the left side of the house. And a lot of blood. Some on the walls looked intentional. Handprints, I think. Look, I've seen my share of grisly murder scenes in homicide, but this wasn't anything like those. She swallowed and put a hand to her mouth, looking away into the darkening street. Suppressing nausea. A gesture I'd know anywhere. More like a massacre, a war zone. I don't know. And that's all you've got? Evelyn asked. That's all. No observations to share. Nothing useful. Nicole managed an upturned glare across the seats. Don't take it out on me, all right? Evelyn clicked her tongue and shook her head. Where's Zheng? I croaked. Still in there, I think. Detective Webb nodded toward the house. Heard a window break about 20 minutes before you lot turned up. Think she climbed in. Expected screams a minute later, but, she shrugged, nothing. Nothing. I tried to ask, but my head throbbed again, twice this time. I blinked past it, clenched my muscles, cursed my failing energy. And noticed that Preem had turned her head to look at the house, at the exact moment I'd felt that pulse in my head. Preem. I hissed. Nothing. Evelyn was echoing Nicole already. Nicole shook her head. No commotion, no banging and crashing, no screams. Didn't hear a thing. Bodes well, Evelyn said, dripping sarcasm. Oh shit, Twill hissed. She said she wasn't gonna go inside, right? Something changed her mind. Hunting. I almost admire your blind, idiot optimism, I really do, Evelyn said, twisting in her seat to glare at Twill. But dash. Hey, don't take it out on me either. Twill said. I am not you, what the hell is she looking at? Preem. Another pulse of blood, another wave of dizziness. While Evelyn was speaking, Preem's head twitched at the same time, adjusting her eye line to a different part of the house. Oh no, no, it's not just me, I managed. It's not in my head. Preem feels it too. What's not in your head? Evelyn demanded. Don't you feel it? Wait, it'll happen again. What dash? Twill started, but Evelyn silenced her with a frustrated wave. We waited in silence, in the dark, listening for a sound that was not sound. Throb. Like a rush of blood to the head, but exterior to oneself. Reality, wincing. I felt that, Twill said, wide-eyed. I felt that, what the hell? What was that? I think I felt it too, yeah, Nicole said. Kinda have to concentrate, but yeah, that was definitely not my imagination. Preem. Evelyn demanded. What is that? What are you looking at? Motion, Preem intoned, the first word she'd spoken in Nicole's presence, the ringing of a distant, icy bell. Motion, what? What does that mean? Evelyn asked. Motion. In the house? Preem declined to answer the obvious question. Evelyn sat back in her seat, frowning up a storm. Nicole stared at the doll demon, more confused than the rest of us. Inside, I started to shake. This was supposed to be quick. We were supposed to have Rain out of there by now. What's Twill started, swallowed, spread her hands. What's to think about? What does this change? We're still gonna bust in there and get Rain, right? I could go right now, what are we waiting for? Yes, I hissed. Please. I am thinking, said Evelyn. I mean, you said that Rain probably killed those people herself, right? Twill asked. I could break down the front door right now, be in and out before they even know what dash. I am changing my mind based on available information. Evelyn spoke through her teeth. Perhaps you should try it sometime. Twill blinked. But dash. No spirits within several streets of this place. A demon far more powerful and proficient than Preem entered that house and did not come back out. And something in there is pinging our flesh with magical sonar. Let me think. We sat in the dark, and Evelyn did her thinking. Quietly, privately, I began to panic. Strictly speaking, Evelyn and I were supposed to be surplus to requirements. Both of us were exhausted by our experiences. This was meant to be a smash and grab, in and out, send Preem in the front door or Twill up through a window, break heads and kill zombies and find Rain and bring her back to the car and leave. On the way here I'd half hoped we'd turn the corner and see Zheng out in the street already, carrying a bruised but otherwise unhurt Rain, confused and shaken but whole and well. Quick and easy, in and out. I'd prayed and I'd gotten it wrong. Evelyn hadn't had time to summon anything, but at least she had her scrimshawed magical thighbone clutched under her coat. What did I have to contribute? Dead weight, a spent mind, and Rain's handgun hidden in my hoodie. I'd dosed myself up on more caffeine before we'd left home, and accepted Evelyn's offer of 2 pills from her mysterious little bottle. I didn't care what they were, only that they got me on my feet and kept me there for another couple of hours, and they achieved that with surprising efficiency. My mind worked and I could walk unaided, though probably not run. My body was due for one hell of a crash, and I kept coaxing it, keep going, please keep going, later, we can rest later. We'd left Lozzie back at home, along with Kimberly in strict instructions to keep the doors locked. I hadn't liked that, hadn't liked the feeling of leaving Lozzie behind when we'd spent so many weeks apart already, haunted by the creeping notion she might be gone when I returned, but I wasn't going to put my Lozzie in harm's way. Didn't care how much I was treating her as a surrogate for my sister. Lozzie was bright and bubbly and wonderful, and utterly useless in a fight like this. Stab-happy with a scalpel in the heat of the moment, but currently robbed of the ability to slip away outside, to defend herself in the way she knew how. Kimberly hadn't taken any convincing to look after her for a bit, though I suspected the emotional support and care would be the other way around. I should have stayed with them, half dead and held up by pills and determination. So, Nicole cleared her throat. Who's number 4 here? Preem. Interesting name. You a wizard too, or, Preem turned to look at her, blank and empty. Nicole squinted. No pupils. All right then. She's a demon, Evelyn grunted. Possessing a life-size wooden doll. My helper. Preem is safe, I croaked. Safe, Preem agreed. Nicole blinked 3 times, turned to face forward, and blew out an exasperated breath. Explains the voice, at least. Deal with it, Evelyn said. We don't have time for squeamishness. At least Preem wasn't dressed as a maid right now. We'd convinced her to change into outdoor clothes during our confused and hurried exit from Evelyn's house, her habitual uniform replaced by a practical pair of baggy jeans and one of Evelyn's comfortable jumpers. Remaining relatively inconspicuous out here on a public street was not going to be too easy, but Preem marching about in her full regalia would have made it nearly impossible. Though if she'd refused to leave her uniform behind, none of us would have stopped her. We owed her a debt. We'd commandeered Rain's car, neither Evelyn or myself in any condition to walk the 2-mile-long journey across half of Sherrowford to reach Bar End Road, but none of us could drive. None of us, until Preem had finished helping me into the car and Evelyn had ordered her into the driver's seat. The doll demon had performed like a precision-engineered mechanical autopilot, sliding the gears without a single squeak, sticking like glue to the speed limits. "When the hell d'you teach her to drive?" Twill had hissed from the back seat, as we'd crept through the dying streaks of rush-hour traffic. "Didn't," Evelyn grunted. "It's simple observation, mechanical application. They're good at that." Rain's battered old car sat behind us now, and behind that, further out in the shadows, lurked Felicity's hulking Range Rover. Nobody had dared suggest asking her to drive us. "No time, yeah, no time," Nicole echoed. She put her hands on the car's steering wheel and squeezed until her knuckles went white. "I do need to call this in before, some civvy notices something wrong." "None taken," said Nicole. "Think we've already got attention," said Twill. "Who's who?" "What?" Nicole followed the direction of Twill's nod and saw nothing through the car's windscreen. "Neither did I." "That. Right there." Twill extended an arm over the back of the passenger seat, and jabbed a finger. "That second car, there's somebody sitting in the driver's seat. They just moved." "Are you all blind?" Nicole squinted into the gathering dusk. The car Twill had indicated was barely visible, maybe 100 feet down the road, parked carefully in a shadowed gap between pools of orange street lighting. Dark and cold was plenty of cover for an unseen watcher. "Twill," Evelyn hissed from the passenger seat. "There's Dash." "Begging your pardon, Miss Wizard," Nicole said slowly, eyeing the other car. "But she's right. I've not done many stakeouts, but if we've got a tail, we need to deal with it now." "How didn't you notice before?" Evelyn asked with a huff. "Isn't this your job?" "Apparently I don't have," Nicole sighed sharply. "Werewolf senses." "What do we do?" I croaked. "Depends who it is." Nicole took a deep breath and blew it out, suddenly calmer. Having a natural, practical problem to solve settled her mind. "We can't proceed if we're being watched. All these houses are a bad enough liability, let alone some bugger lurking with a camera. If it's one of the, cultists, then we should figure out how to detain them. A curious member of the public, I can drive off. Chances are it might not have anything to do with us." "Slim bloody chance, Detective," Evelyn grumbled. "True. Still, we need to be careful. We need to be fast," I complained as hard as I could, my voice a wheeze. "Rain is inside there. We need to get rid of this person." "Preem could do it," Evelyn said. "Fast and Dash." "No, not in public, not like that," Nicole said. "You kidding?" "Heather's right." "Sod this," Twill hissed, opened the back door, and catapulted herself out of the car. She hit the pavement at a low, lurking run, and vanished into the shadows. A wave of cold air pushed back the hard work of the BMW's heater, and I shivered despite my coat and hoodie and 3 layers of t-shirt. The cold was inside me, and not warming up. Preem reached over from the middle seat and closed the door with a thump, then settled back, her hips slightly less crammed against my thigh now Twill wasn't taking up a third of the back seat. "Thank you," I said, half to Preem, half to Twill who couldn't hear me now. "Bloody hell." Nicole ran a hand down her face. "Yes, that's generally how we do things, Detective," Evelyn said. I gathered. We all watched with bated breath as Twill ghosted through the shadows, but our mysterious watcher caught wind of her a few moments too early. Headlights came on high, then dipped their beams, catching Twill in the act of slinking closer, lighting her up like a suspect in a noir film. A compact engine rumbled to life and the driver put the car in reverse, tires giving a neat little squeak as it backed away, turned in the road, and roared off. Twill slunk back to Nicole's car a minute later. She couldn't contain herself long enough to climb in and shut the door. We monsters and mages weren't the only people interested in number 7 Bar End Road. It was her. Baldy. You know, the scary one. Amy Stack. I croaked. Yeah, her. Get in and shut the door, for pity's sake, Evelyn said. Yeah. Twill did as she was told, but still wide-eyed and keyed up, raring to bare her teeth. Second she saw me she bolted, but I saw her face, right? It was like she didn't even care. How does she do that? She's like a statue. Sociopath, I muttered. Bloody right. Creepy shit. Twill shook her head. I'm sorry, could any of you wizards inform me who the hell you're talking about? Amy Stack, professional hitman or assassin or thug, we're not sure, Evelyn said. I've never had to deal with her, Heather has. Doesn't work for this lot anymore, or at least says she doesn't. Splinter Group. That all? Nicole paused. Wizards need hitmen. Some. Do you think she did it? Twill piped up. Baldy went in there and killed them all. Always missing the obvious, Evelyn was muttering. Always. No, Twill, of course she didn't. She's not stupid enough to walk in there. Not like us. Are you 3-4? Does she count? Nicole pointed at Preem. Gonna come up with a plan, or what? Evelyn looked up at the house, darkness gathering under the eaves, windows closed to the world beyond, deceptively clean and wholesome. Burn it to the ground, she said. Rain dash, I started. I know Rain is in there, Evelyn snapped, a sudden whip crack of voice that made even Nicole jump. If she wasn't, we wouldn't be sitting here. I'd have sent Preem with a jerry can of petrol and a box of matches, and a bag of salt for the earth afterward. You're not joking. Oh, great. Murder and arson. Nicole put her face in one hand. Absolutely not a joke, Evelyn confirmed. The Sherrowford cult, whatever they serve now, they got in too deep. We're not prepared for what's in that house. I'll stake £10,000 on that. Evie. I croaked. We have to. Yeah, we are gonna bust Rain out, right? Twill asked. I'm not leaving without her. Me neither, I said. I'm not certain we can, Evelyn continued, her voice cold and controlled. We will, I croaked. Ask yourselves the obvious question. Evelyn raised her chin, her voice slipping into that schoolmistress-teacher mode that I found so false and infuriating. Why now, Evelyn? If I'd been more energetic I could have slapped her in frustration. We needed to be breaking down that front door now, calling for Rain. What question? I almost growled. Evelyn turned and met my eyes, utterly unabashed. Where's the retaliation? Twill joined me. Am I the only one capable of thinking strategically? Evelyn asked us. Heather escapes from these people this morning, leaves one of them dead and the other tied up, and steals one of their greatest assets, Shang. They likely knew we were scattered and weak. And you didn't expect them to strike before we could regroup? But they haven't, said Twill. Exactly. And you never wondered about this, not for 1 second? I did, I croaked. Was kinda busy. Twill scratched the back of her head. With you, mostly. Yes, well, Evelyn waved her down. I missed the obvious too. Where's their counterstrike? Where's a person walking up to our front door with a machete? Where's the magical construct breaking all our skulls? Absent. She jabbed a finger at the house. What's happened in there, HM? Internal schism, they killed each other. Maybe. Lost control of something like Sheng? Possible. You know what's more likely? They were planning something, to strike back at us, you, Heather, specifically. Putting something together toward that end. Seems a bit of a coincidence that we'd find a house full of bodies first. You mean like, Twill ventured slowly. They screwed up some magic. Understatement of the year, yes, Twill, well done. They may have screwed up some magic in the same way that a nuclear accident is screwing up a safety test. Alexander Lilburn's booby-trapped corpse may only be the tip of the iceberg. They dabbled in stuff that hijacks the human brain through vision, and that was a trap laid for nobody. They're in contact of a kind with Heather's eye. Whatever happened in there, we're all better off not knowing about. We get rain, I said. I don't care. Yes, we will, Evelyn said through gritted teeth. The question is how. I could go, Twill said. I'm invincible, remember? Have you heard a word I said? Evelyn turned on her, eyes blazing. You think Sheng was any less invincible than you? Your head works the same as mine. Evelyn reached forward and actually tapped Twill on the forehead, hard and angry. I don't care if you can cut all your limbs off and regrow them, you are not invincible in the way that counts. What about Preem here? Nicole suggested. She's not human, right? She's not Dash. Invulnerable, I said. Expendable, Evelyn said. At the same time. We glanced at each other. Can Heather do her thing all over again, check to make sure Rain's actually in there? Nicole asked. Werewolf, can you climb? If she's up in a top-floor room, maybe you don't have to go through the whole house. I'll die if I do it again, I croaked, and left unsaid the real reason. I needed what energy I had for one last brain math trick, just in case. I'm pretty sure. I don't know what to do, Evelyn hissed through her teeth. Walk in there, I croaked. Heather, your dedication is touching, but you sent a 7-foot, centuries-old demon host in there, who by your account survived a fight with a building this morning. She has not come back out. I'll go. I began to reach for the car door handle. It wasn't a bluff. I didn't care how exhausted I was, or what was in that house. I was going to fetch my girlfriend. Without being ordered, Preem gently took my wrist and stopped me. I pulled, ineffectually, and Evelyn sighed. I'm not saying we don't try, Evelyn said. I'm saying let me think. Evie Dash. Heather, she is my best friend, and I love her almost as much as you do. Shut up and let me think. That stopped me. In the depths of my exhaustion and panic I hadn't read the tightness around Evelyn's eyes, or how she grit her teeth when she spoke. She'd never have said that out loud if Rain could hear. I nodded, and let her think. Paint, she said after a moment. Paint and a mirror. Paint? Twill squinted. Yes, a bucket of paint, and a mirror. It's the best we can do. Limit visual exposure. I caught on instantly, my mind already running ahead. Perseus. Evelyn nodded. Twill frowned. Greek myth. Perseus and the Gorgon. Use a mirror so you don't turn to stone, I explained. And we don't need a mirror. Use our phones. I mind holding up my mobile phone. Look at stuff through your phone screen at an angle. Anything there you shouldn't look at, take a bucket of paint, splash, cover it up. Nicole let out a soft laugh. Oh, this is some sci-fi bullshit. You're kidding. No, it's our best shot. Extreme care, Evelyn said. Treat anything and everything in there as potentially lethal, a cognitive hazard. Kill anything that moves. Find Rain as quickly as we can, avoid anything else. Then we burn the place to the ground. Evelyn's gaze wandered upward, past Twill and Preem and I, out through the back window of the car. She frowned, and Nicole followed. With more effort than I'd have liked, I twisted in my seat too, and looked back along the road. "Idiot," Evelyn hissed. "She's going to get the whole street looking at her." Felicity was half out of her car, doors standing open, waving at us with one raised arm. "I'm sorry, but I have to go." "I have to." "I can't, I have to go," Felicity babbled at Twill and I through the open driver's side window, her one good eye wild with panic, the burned half of her face twitching. She'd already climbed back into her car as we'd approached. "Don't let Evelyn go in that house, please. Promise me. You're leaving now." Twill gaped at her. "You're not going to stay and help?" I hissed, outraged. In the end, Twill and I had made the short journey down the pavement to Felicity's car, while Preem set off in the opposite direction on a 20-minute walk toward the nearest hardware shop, on a quest for paint, petrol, and matches. Evelyn waited with Detective Webb. Out in the street, my layers and my coat barely kept the cold at bay, and the ugly metal lump in the front of my hoodie felt even heavier. I could have stayed in the car, let Twill do this. She was more than capable of asking what was wrong, and perhaps slightly better inclined toward Felicity than I felt, but I was determined to stretch my legs, keep my muscles warm, determined to be useful. I can't." Felicity tried to apologize with every word. "I have to go." "I don't believe this," I said, shaking my head. "Evelyn was right." "You were right. You are a dash. She said she promised to help you, Heather. She's not meant to be corporeal, not for this long, not for more than a few minutes, but she's stuck." "I don't know what's wrong." A cold feeling settled on my throat. "She. Who are you, dash?" Perhaps unconsciously, Felicity's one good eye flicked sideways, not quite a glance into the back seat, but close enough for me to follow the gesture. She lay across the back seat, half hidden underneath a heavy blanket, hissing and twitching in the darkness. The parasite did not look remotely like a little girl in a black dress. Perhaps Felicity had used that description to cover for the awful reality. Or perhaps the thing was trying to be more human, in the same way Preem was trying to be a maid, but Felicity's parasite was having far less success. Beady black eyes like something dredged up from the ocean floor, peering at me from within deeper pool of oily night. Distant street lighting caught on a maw full of tiny serrated teeth. Panting and shaking beneath the blanket, like an animal in pain. A bone-stretched hand with black nails shape-shifted from cat claws to talons to little stubby fingers as I watched, then quickly bundled up underneath the blanket again. Another throb went through the air, through my head, and Felicity's parasite, her demon familiar, her torturer, her pet, whatever unthinkable and disgusting category it fit into, flinched and whined. A hiss lingered in the air. Twill finally noticed too, and went wide-eyed. "Holy sure dash. She got back to the car, but she's in pain," Felicity said. Her mask of professionalism had worn paper-thin over a welter of emotion. I have to do something." Something thumped the back of her seat. Another hiss, a wounded snake. Felicity closed her eyes and bit her lip. "What happened?" I ignored Felicity and pressed my face closer to the back window. "What was inside?" "I don't think she can communicate right now," Felicity said. "She's not supposed to be physical for this long. I don't understand how this is possible." You," I demanded, unable to use such an insult toward a creature in such obvious pain. "What was in the house? Please." A limb, not an arm, a blackened thing of shifting oil and stripped muscle met my face at the window and made me flinch, before vanishing back down into the bundle below. Felicity said a name cradled with more care than should be possible for this inhuman writhing lump in the back of her car, and twisted to look at her parasite. It's going to be okay. I promise. You'll be okay. I'll fix you." Another 2 thumps on the back of Felicity's chair. Her exterior was rapidly crumbling. "You need to look after your pet," I said. "Not a question." "She is not a pet," Felicity said, and I felt as if that was the first time I'd heard her tell a whole truth. She's all I have. From the darkness in the back seat, a hissing laugh. Mockery. Victory. Hysterical pain. I don't have time to think about you or what you are, I said to Felicity's face. I pointed at the road. If you need to go, then go. Don't let Evelyn in that house, Felicity pleaded. She turned the key in the ignition and the car roared to life, but she hesitated as she wound the window up. Good luck, a voice came from the back seat, wet and sharp and evil, spoken through a sucking wound. Felicity turned to the road, eyes hollow, and left. 20 minutes later, 5 furtive figures slipped through the open iron gate of number 7 Bar End Road. The house rose above us in the thickening darkness. Not even 6 o'clock yet, but the sun was gone. A few lights burned inside the house, trapped behind heavy curtains, but not a whisper of movement reached us down below. Nicole went first, the face of professional normality walking up to the front door, raising her hand and knocking. More for appearance than practicality. Twill and Evelyn followed, the latter struggling with her walking stick, legs still not quite right after her long unconsciousness. Twill carried a bucket of paint and a trowel-like scoop. I followed in their wake. Last came Preem, carrying another bucket of paint in one hand and a sloshing jerry can of petrol in the other. Nobody answered the door. Nothing stirred inside the house except 3 pulses of that blood-to-the-head dizzy feeling. In the distance, somebody slammed a car door. Laughter caught on the wind. Trees rustled above us. Preem, Evelyn hissed. Preem stepped forward, drew back her free hand, and shattered the lock on the front door. Punched it almost clean through the wood. The sound was awful, splintering and tearing, metal shearing. She pulled her hand back and the entire brass and steel mechanism came with it. Wait. Nicole hissed, one hand up. Wait. We waited for the inevitable curious neighbor, the passer-by, the curtain twitcher. 3-4 minutes passed, and nothing happened. In the clear, right? Twill hissed. Evelyn shot her a glare. We're stepping into a haunted house. So, no. Nicole already had her phone out, using it to peer through the gap left by the ripped-out door handle. The rest of us followed her example and took out our phones except Preem. She was staring at a random point on the wall. More motion? I asked. Motion, Preem intoned. Shoo. Evelyn hissed. Getting inside number 7 was quite the performance. Easing the front door open, poking phones around the corner to check for nasty surprises that might fry our brains or implant squid monsters into our skulls, staying silent and stealthy. I'm quite certain Nicole's instinct was to announce herself with a cry of "Police," and I was bursting to shout Rain's name at the top of my lungs. The house's foyer was unoccupied. We crept in. As ugly as the exterior. Cream-white walls and shiny skirting boards. A wide doormat protected marble floor tiles, which gave way to thick carpets that looked as if they'd seen less than a week of foot traffic. High ceilings, fake gold and thin glass light fixtures, a bowl of fake fruit on a sideboard. Nobody lived here. Existed within the walls for a brief time, perhaps, but this was not a home, just a shell of a house decorated to give the impression of high-class life. A holiday house, a showroom, a rich man's bauble. A thin layer of dust but no real dirt, nowhere, too clean except for the 24 pairs of shoes clustered by the door. 3 yawning doorways led off in different directions. A huge pool of blood had soaked into the carpet of the room straight ahead. The source was out of sight, around the corner. I stared at the crimson stain through the screen on my phone, my guts going cold. Reeks in here, Twill whispered, wrinkling her nose. Shut the door, Evelyn hissed. And keep your voice down. One did not need to be a werewolf to smell the awful scents of iron and effluvia, of voided bowels and torn meat. The air was thick with it, drowning out the smell of potpourri and carpet shampoo. Twill closed the door behind us as quietly as possible. Preem set down the can of petrol, but readied the paint. Somewhere in the depths of the house, I could hear a distant hum, the heating system perhaps, and a faint scratch like the skipping of an old-fashioned record player. And below that, a high-pitched whine on the very edge of hearing. Nails down a blackboard. Only audible if one concentrated on the silence, but enough to make your eyes water. What is that sound? Nicole whispered. Not really a sound, Evelyn whispered back. Ignore it. Right. Keep it together, detective, Evelyn hissed. Right. Which way first dash? A giggle rose from deep in the house, a wave of manic, hyperventilating humor, echoing like in a cave. The laughter rose to a hysterical crescendo, then faded, died, and just when we were all about to breathe once more, a staccato of running footsteps sprinted across the second floor, thumping on the ceiling above our heads. The footsteps raced on and on and on, as if running far further than the actual distance possible inside these four walls. The footsteps receded into the distance. Silence returned. Except for the high-pitched whine. Guess somebody's still alive in here, Nicole whispered. Nobody. Freak. Out, Evelyn hissed. Stick to the plan. That room first. Twill, no, I'll do it. Here dash. Throb, went my head. Reality winced like an eyeball squeezing shut, so much worse inside the house. We all winced. Graphical glitches marred the image on my phone, jarring the picture sideways. And a song rang out from somewhere nearby. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door dash. I knew that song. From The Hobbit. Such a familiar thing, a childhood thing, sung in a forlorn voice, echoing from behind a corner or every corner or just behind one's head. Throb, and the singing cut off. Gone. A muffled scream, somewhere deep in the house, panting and high and frantic, more like sex than pain. Silence. 30 seconds. A minute. None of us dared move. I don't know, Evelyn whispered. She'd gone pale and drawn. The singing, I managed, had to swallow to speak more. That was Sarika's voice. That was her. Evelyn glanced at me, doing a poor job of hiding her fear. She wasn't cut out for direct confrontation. They've broken reality in here, she said. They've abused it and snapped it in half. We find rain, I said. Why am I even in here? Nicole said, voice distant. This was meant to be a job for you wizards. Leave if you want, Evelyn hissed at her. The detective swallowed hard. Nah. Young woman's been kidnapped. Pile of bodies. Criminals breaking reality, gotta be illegal, that. Struggling for a moment with my hoodie, I maneuvered Rain's handgun out of my front pocket. The ugly metal felt cold and wrong in my hands. I offered it to the detective. She stared at me. I've never fired a gun before, she said. Me neither, I whispered. Better you than me. She took it gingerly, as if it were a live scorpion. She frowned at it for a moment, experimenting with holding the gun and her phone at the same time, then found the safety and clicked it off. How many bullets are in it? I don't want to eject, is that the right word? Eject the magazine, in case I can't get it back in. I shrugged. Don't know. Nicole wet her lips. Better than nothing. Good for a bluff, I suppose. I doubt that thing will be relevant here, detective. Evelyn pulled the scrimshawed thighbone out from inside her coat, and placed her free hand around the shaft, fingers in precise places. Nicole's eyebrows climbed her face. Right. Right. Magic wands, she said, and tried to laugh. It didn't work. Twill. Evelyn hissed as Twill moved. I said I'll dash. I'm doing it, Twill grunted, no room for argument as she crept forward to check around the doorway ahead. She kept to one side and slowly inched her phone around the door frame, moving it up and down to take in the ceiling and the floor, every possible place the cult or the eye could hide a cognitive hazard. She pulled a disgusted face, then froze and frowned. What? Evelyn hissed. If there's something there, throw paint on it. That's the point. There is, but Twill glanced back at me. Let me see, Evelyn said, and went to Twill, careful not to clack her walking stick too loudly. Preem kept at Evelyn's shoulder without being ordered. Evelyn peered at Twill's phone screen and went a little green around the gills. A dead body inside the room, I assumed. They both looked back at me. The bottom of my stomach dropped out. It's not Dash, I could barely get the words out. It's not Rain. No. Evelyn hissed. Is it safe? Nicole asked. Exceptionally, Evelyn said through gritted teeth. Twill led us through. It was a kind of reception room, with a low glass table in the middle and a pair of leather sofas either side, for the endless dull coffee mornings and casual social occasions of upper-middle-class Sherrowford. Cream walls, porcelain knickknacks over an imitation fireplace, faux oak end tables with vases and dead flowers. 4 dead bodies. One looked like it had exploded from inside, or been pulverized by a wrecking ball, stuffed into a corner and splattered up the walls. Barely recognizable as human, let alone male or female, young or old, more meat and bone than person. Zhang's work. I could barely look without feeling sick, and Evelyn kept her eyes firmly averted, until Preem moved to stand between her and the carnage. The second corpse was almost worse, if that was possible. An older gentleman lay half-collapsed over the sofa, his clothes roughly stripped and cut back to reveal masses of pale overweight flesh. Blood matted his beard and bow tie and gaudy suit jacket. A symbol had been carved into his flesh, over and over again, crimson lines dry and crusted now. The bloody scissors next to his hand suggested he'd done it to himself. Shaking, unable to believe my eyes, I recognized the symbol. The third corpse, a blond young man, had slit his own wrists with a jagged piece of glass. The pool of blood we'd seen from the entrance belonged to him. The fourth had used the blood to make art, and lay face up, staring at the ceiling, no visible wound on him but quite dead, dried bloody foam at his mouth and nostrils. It was the man from Glasswick Tower. The cultist Zhang and I had spared. I couldn't recall his name. His sleeve was rolled up to show the unwise gift I'd given him. He'd tried to flay the skin away from his flesh, remove it from his arm, but pain or interruption had stopped him halfway. Heather, Evelyn was hissing. Heather, what did you do? I don't know. I didn't Dash. On the wall, a symbol, 8 feet tall. The same symbol as the one carved into the old man's flesh, the same as on the cultist's arm. In the blood of the man who'd slit his wrists, soaked into the paint and plaster, every angle precise and mathematical, a branching tree limb of comfort and protection, the same as on my left forearm. The fractal. They'd daubed it on the wall, in blood. The fractal, 8 feet from tip to tail, painted on the wall with a dead man's blood. Do I recognize this? Twill asked in a stage whisper. Isn't this, the one on Heather's arm? Yes, Evelyn hissed through her teeth, ashen-faced and wide-eyed. Yes, it is. Heather, what did you do? You gave it to them. My mouth moved, numb and mute. Few discoveries could have been worse for my psychological state. Rain's corpse, perhaps. A cluster of branching lines on a wall added up to a violation of the stability we'd so painstakingly applied to my life over the last few months. The fractal was one of the first gifts Rain had ever given me, after an ear to listen and a shoulder to cry on, the first evidence of the supernatural she'd shoehorned into my tiny, crumbling, pathetic life, the one tool that had finally shut out the eye. We refreshed it together every few days, Rain retracing the lines on my left forearm with a black body art pen. Our little shared ritual of care and comfort, the one piece of magic that was neither scary nor unnatural, just rain cradling my arm and drawing on my skin to keep me safe. Intimate and personal. Bedtime normality. 8 feet high. In blood. At the center of a massacre. I hiccuped, felt my throat closing, my eyes filling with tears. Heather, Evelyn hissed. You gave it to them. They took it off your arm, they copied it. Duh, said Twill. But why? To block out the eye, I heard myself say, as if far away. I thought, it was him. I managed to nod down at the cultist Cheng and I had spared, the fractal half flayed from his own arm, hanging loose in a flap of bloody skin. God damn you, Heather, Evelyn muttered. I didn't want to kill him. The words burst from me, the truth. Nobody deserves the eye, Evie, nobody, I thought it would . Another hiccup. Shaking all over. A squeezing pain in my left arm. I was gripping my forearm where the fractal lurked on my own flesh. Gripping so hard my fingers hurt. Stop panicking, Evelyn snapped. I don't think I can. Another hiccup. I squeezed my eyes shut, but it didn't help. The stench of blood and pulped meat was too strong. I dug my fingernails into my sleeve, into my flesh, willing myself to bleed. I am trying to establish what happened. Heather, damn it, pay . Not your fault, Preem intoned, her voice a clear bell in the listening quiet of the house. Evelyn whirled on her and hissed, but the doll demon ignored her mistress. Preem stepped toward me. I flinched, almost stepping into the squelching blood-soaked carpet, my mind recoiling from paranoid fantasies of Preem ripping the skin off my own left arm to remove the offending magic, shoving my face against the bloody wall to rub my nose in what I'd done, an avenging avatar of my mounting guilt. All this death, this suffering, it was my fault. I'd spread the fractal, given these people the tools to butcher themselves. Preem was always so honest, saw with a clarity we humans lacked. She reached for me and I cringed away. But I deserved it. Quickly, carefully, gently, Preem took my left elbow and my right wrist, and peeled me off myself. Ah, ow. The fingers of my right hand ached where I'd squeezed so hard. Ow, said Preem. Empty white eyes stared into mine. She felt no need to repeat herself. Not my fault, I echoed. Not my fault. I nodded, tried to get a grip on my breathing. Preem lowered my arms for me. Not my fault. You were there, yes, Preem, you knew I was only trying to help. Thank you. Yes. Yes, thank you, Preem, Evelyn added. Not my fault, I lied, one last time. Guilt later. Rain first. I managed to look at the symbol on the wall and carved into the flesh of the man dead on the sofa without feeling soul-sick. Yes, Heather, it's not your fault, Evelyn still tried to keep her voice down, a hushed half-whisper. That doesn't matter. I am trying to establish how they got their hands on it, and what the hell they've done with it. I gave it to him. I pointed at the cultist Cheng and I had spared, his dead eyes staring at the ceiling. No mark on his body. What had killed him? He was so desperate, so broken. Evie, nobody deserves the eye. I thought the fractal would block out what the eye did to them, what Alexander did to them. But I don't get it. It didn't work. On the contrary, Evelyn grunted. Her left hand was white-knuckled on her walking stick, her jaw tight. It worked far too well. You free yourself this morning, and lucky boy number 1 here flees to this safe house, tells the others the good news. Some of them rush to it, the ones who never wanted to be part of this. The lifers, the true believers, they reject it, refuse. A philosophical disagreement turns into a schism, a fight breaks out. Evelyn trailed off. She cast a reluctant glance at the exploded corpse in the corner, and another down at the dead man at our feet. No visible wounds. Brain or nervous system or soul burned away. Yeah, nah, Twill said what we were all thinking. Doesn't look like any fight I've ever seen, Nicole put in. Our tame police detective showed surprising self-control amid the blood and guts and unexplained magic. A little green around the gills, but professional and alert. She kept the handgun pointed at the floor, her eyes high and watching, on the way we'd came and the other two exits from the plush little reception room, an open doorway into a long hallway, and a half-closed door to a larger and more decorative sitting room. Twill was on high alert too, the tin of white paint and her phone forgotten now, hands wreathed in ghostly wolf flesh, fur and claw. So this occult doohickey drove them all crazy? Nicole asked. No. Evelyn snapped. Maybe. I don't understand how. Well, it did something to them, right? Nicole pressed. I think I've been able to follow that much. Nothing. It does nothing. That's the point, Evelyn hissed, impatient and scowling at the blasphemous blood mural, at the paradox it represented. It doesn't do anything because it's the opposite of action. Enforced inaction, a firewall, a blast door between here and outside. This is probably the safest place in the whole house, unless they drew an even bigger one. That dead man over there, his mind should have been practically untouchable. She waved a vague hand at the carved corpse on the sofa, the older gentleman with the fractal cut into his flesh over and over. That is true, I whispered to myself. Meant to be safe. Safe. Not your fault, not your fault. Twill spared me a concerned frown. I looked away, embarrassed. What if it didn't work? Nicole asked. They got desperate, made a bigger one to protect themselves. Makes sense. Twill tried. No it doesn't, Evelyn hissed. Don't talk about things you know nothing about. A single instance of the warding sign on a door or wall or this idiot's arm would be more than enough. You don't need to scrawl it on a wall in human blood, it's not like other magic. It's coded into reality at the base level. Like a right angle. This works as it is. Evelyn didn't have anything to say to that. She scowled at the fractal in silence. You mean, like, it doesn't mean anything? Twill asked. It means something went wrong, Evelyn said. I need to know what. This doesn't change the plan, I said. We still need to find Rain. Yeah, sooner the better, Twill grunted. I want out of here. They were just corpses. Grisly corpses, of people who died horribly violent deaths they probably didn't deserve, but that's what we expected to find here. The fractal changed nothing. They'd turned, in their last moments, to the only hope they had. In the part of my heart that could still feel amid the nervous effect deadening of the situation, I hoped the fractal had given them some solace at the end. Evelyn nodded, drew herself up, adjusted her grip on her walking stick. And quietly. Whatever happened here is still happening. Twill, Preem, check around that door first. Twill, don't forget to use your phone dash. Throb. A rush of blood to the head as reality flinched sideways. I winced hard, the sensation almost painful. Evelyn hissed through her teeth. Even Preem blinked. 607, 613, 617, 6-. Sarika's voice, from the room next door. Throb. Throb. Another reality-crunching blink of missing motion, and there she was, hunched forward on the sofa opposite the carved man. The same high boots and tight jeans and long black hair as this morning in Glasswick Tower. The same fine features, same bone-crushing exhaustion around her eyes, same weariness heavy across her slumped shoulders. Worst part of it is I can't anchor myself, she was already speaking, staring at her hands. Never long enough to get my bearings. It's like being trapped in a hospital bed, pumped full of morphine, but the pain doesn't stop. You keep waking up and slipping back and waking up and dash. Holy shit. Twill froze, eyes wide. What dash, somebody else was saying Nicole, I think. Preem moved to cover Evelyn. I stared, and felt sick. Sarika was broken. Her hands and arms and head left jerky after images as she moved, a glitching animation on a broken television screen, outlined in iridescent burning colors. Parts of her decohered and snapped back into place, flickering in and out of reality, an image ruined by static interference. The effect made one's eyes water, reached back into the brain stem, triggered shivering disgust and nausea. She was a ghost, a human soul unanchored from her flesh, a lost signal. And then I felt it, behind her, through her, like a searchlight the size of the sun trapped on the far side of a mountain range. Sarika was not the signal, she was the static. I don't think the others felt it. Or perhaps they did, but weren't as familiar with it as I, shivering, my guts clenched in animal fear, I felt myself shrinking, fighting the desire to curl up in a ball, to make myself small and pray the sensation would pass over me, miss me, forget me. A vast awareness, peering down through her like an eye through a microscope. Throb. And Sarika was gone. We all looked at each other, speechless. What the hell was that? Nicole asked first, rubbing her eyes and blinking rapidly. Was that an illusion? A trick? Sarika, that was her, I said, my voice cracking. That was definitely her, An dash. You're certain? Evelyn disentangled herself from Preem's protective grip. The dull demon had bundled her out of the way, put her arms around her mistress. Heather, you're certain that was her? Okay. Haunted house, Nicole said. That wasn't a figure of speech. Haunted house, I can deal. It's not a ghost, Evelyn snapped, she's I don't know. Evie dash, I struggled to speak, my conscious mind too slow to catch up with the implications. Evie, didn't you feel that? Feel what? Throb. That vast awareness pressed down on my mind once again, as if spotting us from another angle. An eyelid opening above us. Figure what dash, Evelyn started. Sarika's jittering, flickering form lost what little coherence it had, reduced to static and chaos as the real signal intensified. All of us felt it then. Impossible not to. A crawling in the guts and up the spine, an evolutionary relic from the days of avoiding predators on the savannah. The feeling of being watched. Evelyn spluttered to a stop, eyes wide and lips quivering. Nicole pointed the handgun at nothing, head swiveling. Twill growled, then whined low in her throat, backing up, backing away from a sensation she couldn't place. Darkness and pressure. The walls closing in, breath in short supply and sanity slipping. I think I gibbered. Somebody did. Rain saved me again, at least by proxy. As my mind fell into instinctive terror, I clung hard to the reason we were here, gabbed my left sleeve and ripped it down. The fractal on my flesh, exposed to the air, a gale of clean wind. I think I shouted something inane, like, get against the wall, my own back already thumping against the huge blood mural fractal. My shoes were sticky with the dead man's blood, squelching on the carpet. Almost tripped over the corpse. It wasn't a heroic moment. Those kinds of moments never are, that only happens in movies. Reality is always a messy animal scramble to preserve one's life, more chance and panic than flashy victory. Twill tripped and skidded on the floor, blood on her fur and clothes, whining like a kicked dog. Evelyn was incapable, eyes screwed shut and panting as Preem hauled her off her feet. Even the doll demon was affected, her motion stiff and imprecise as she slammed herself into the wall next to me, cushioning the impact for Evelyn in her arms. Nicole clawed at her own face, whimpering and confused, but she made it to safety. Crammed in behind me, between my fractal and the one on the wall, my arm turned against Sarika, against the thing using her remains as a vector we all lived. For now. It knew we were trying to rebel. Sarika screamed like a banshee. Throb. Silence, no more Sarika, no more pressure. I fell over. On my backside. Onto the blood-soaked carpet. Not the most dignified of victories, but hygiene was the last concern on my mind. Sarika's parting words hung in the air. Strong hands found me and pulled me to my feet, the quickest of us to recover. She held me upright while I got my breath back. Evelyn stared, trying to form a question, all her usual bluster and protective irritation shed in wide-eyed horror. Nicole wiped sweat and tears from her own face, raking her hair back where it had escaped its bun. Twill bared teeth and claws at every corner of the room, turning and growling like a wolf surrounded by hunting hounds. "The eye," I said after a moment. "That was the eye." "The what?" Nicole blurted out. "The alien god thing that's after me." I swallowed, and found my nose was bleeding slightly. I wiped it on the back of my sleeve. "That didn't feel the same," Evelyn managed. "As in the medieval metaphysics room, that one time." I nodded, though it barely seemed to matter. Why were we even discussing it? Apes, trying to rationalize a hurricane. "Think," Evelyn snapped. She must have caught the meaning on my face. "Heather, think. You know more about this than anyone." That was different. "Why?" I don't dash. "This is deathly important. Think." I blinked. She was right, it wasn't the same feeling as the time we'd peered into Wonderland and found the eyes staring back. Direct contact, face to face, had been like standing under a lightning strike. Being in Wonderland for real was to forget how to be human, how to be oneself, nothing between one's fragile little mind and the vastness of the eye. What we'd just experienced was filtered, using the broken soul of a dead woman as a lens. Even then, the eye's awareness was still more than enough to crush unprotected thought. Twice in one day, I thought to myself. To borrow a phrase from Evelyn, I hated this bastard thing so much. "It's I don't know," I said. Using Sarika as a conduit. A way in. To reality. "It's looking through her, what's left of her." "Great," Evelyn hissed. "Great. That means nothing to me." "What do we do?" Twill growled. "We gotta get away from this, right? Can't stay here. Can't stay." "What happened to that woman?" Nicole asked. "I don't understand." "And it didn't work, I gather." Can't stay here," Twill repeated, her shoulders hunched tight, claws flexing. I stood up straight, puffed out my chest, and took a deep breath. "Rain." Evelyn winced at my shout. So did Nicole, but Twill joined me, raising her wolfish snout and shouting Rain's name into this void of ghosts. What was the point in stealth anymore? The house, the eye, Sarika, whatever was here, it knew we were here too. "Rain. Rain. We're here. Rain. Where are you?" "Rain." Thump thump. "Rain." "Shoo, Twill, stop, stop." "Right, what?" "Listen, listen." Thump thump thump. A dull, distant hammering, far far above us. A boot heel or a fist against a load-bearing wall. She heard us. "She's upstairs." My heart expanded, fit to burst with relief I could barely feel. "She's upstairs." Twill all but hooped, a shaky grin on her face. "How do we know that's her?" Nicole asked, eyes on the ceiling. "It's the best bet we have," Evelyn hissed. "Fair enough, we can try to dash." Throb. Sarika appeared behind the other sofa, staring down at the carved man. A flinch went through us, a group motion, a pack of animals startled by the probing tentacle of a leviathan. I threw my left arm up, the fractal outward. She flickered, outline shattering into a million static fragments, a ghost smeared across an invisible pane of glass. The eye's awareness turned on us once again, an insistent pressure plunging us miles underwater, held at bay by flimsy black lines drawn on my fragile skin. Sarika's ghost turned, mere static wash against a background of void, and looked at me. Hate. Personal and unquenchable, hate. Throb. She vanished. Everyone gasped in relief, except Preem of course. I lowered my arm, shaking and shivering inside. No. Evelyn hissed. Wait, damn it. Preem reached out and helped hold my arm up, her gentle hand supporting my elbow. We waited, a minute, 2 minutes. Time stretched out, but Sarika did not return. Maybe she's done for now. Twill ventured. She can't see us, she's not actually reacting to us, Evelyn said. Evie, she is, she looked at me, I said quietly. We need to move, we need to get to Rain. And get out. Find some stairs, right? Twill said, and bounded toward the open door at the back of the little reception room, the one that led through into a sumptuous lounge. Twill. Evelyn snapped. She's not the only thing in Dash. The house proved Evelyn's words right before she finished saying them. Roused by Twill's sudden motion or perhaps merely emerging from hiding after Sarika had passed, a writhing mass of limbs scuttled out from underneath one of the sofas. A bundle of severed arms, fused together at the elbows in a twisted mass of melted bone. No head or central body, just limb. The whole thing scurried up the side of the sofa like a spider. Evelyn screamed. Nicole aimed the gun. I sighed. After the eye, this thing was refreshingly mundane. Twill got to it first, whirling at the sound of Evelyn's scream, and pounced on it, all wolfish fang and claw, driven by adrenaline and the need to fight a physical foe. She tore the thing in two so fast the rest of us barely had time to blink. One half dropped to the floor, twitched, and lay still. She flung the other half at a wall. It hit with a splat, slid to the ground, and stopped moving. As I said, Evelyn repeated, struggling to keep her voice steady. Sarika the eye, whatever, she's not the only thing in here. Heather, she nodded to me, eyes on the exposed fractal on my arm. You lead. Carefully. With that. I nodded. I can lead. I can do it. Our original plan lay in tatters. We crept from room to ugly echoing room, past corpses and wreckage and distant furtive sounds, my arm and the fractal held up in place of the mobile phones we planned on using as protection. Only Nicole still observed through the screen of her phone, belatedly checking around corners. Twill flanked my shoulder, ready to sideswipe any monsters that lurked in the hallways of plush carpet and cream walls. None did. Unseen presences moved out in the depths, like abyssal marine life beyond the reach of a diver's lamp. Footsteps crossed the ceiling above our heads, doors creaked closed, furniture squeaked on floorboards. Less frequently, things crashed and banged, sudden explosions of motion hidden behind the walls. Twice, insane laughter ratcheted through the house from some forgotten corner, the first time it trailed off into a whooping, leaping cry. The second it cut out in choking sounds, and did not return. Whatever's left of the cult, Evelyn hissed under her breath. Burning themselves out. Probably don't even care that we're here. Come out and fight me. Twill snarled at nothing. Keep moving, I whispered, then raised my voice. Rain. Thump, from above. Still there. Keep moving. More nightmare amalgamations of crawling flesh lurked in corners or behind open doors, like the fused arm spider. None of them attacked us. Mindless and blind, they dragged themselves in aimless circles. Constructed from internal organs, bits of limb, fragments of articulated bone, flopping and slapping bits of lung and liver against the carpets. A detached foot, a piece of shoulder. Most of them seemed to have come from the exploded corpses, which we found in almost every room, tumbled over each other or cowering in corners from some unseen pursuer. Sarika? The eye. Sarika did not reappear. We stumbled across two more fractals, thankfully neither of them drawn in blood. One was cut directly into the plaster of a wall, with a pocket knife, unfinished and flawed. The cultist responsible lay slumped beneath, a stern and capable-looking young woman. No wound on her body, her empty face retained a hint of the anger she must have felt at the end. Bloody froth coated her lips. The second fractal was hidden in a bathroom, highlighter pen on the white tiles. Two bodies embraced in the tub beneath, huddled together, a pair of young men barely out of their teens. A strange, grudging respect kindled inside my chest as we searched the house. These people had been my enemies, they'd served a monster more than once, they'd attacked my home and hurt my friends, my family. But in the end they'd rebelled against the same thing that tortured me. And with all their numbers, their expertise, their willingness to commit atrocity, they'd still lost. I crammed that thought away for now. Rain first. Eventually, after ugly sitting rooms and long hallways, past a game room with pool table and dartboard, around the remains of an actual murder, one cultist stabbed to death with a knife still protruding from his sternum, we found the kitchen. As ostentatious and superfluous as the rest of the house, a space bigger than some entire apartment floor plans, tiled in marbled white and split down the middle by a projecting island full of displayed crockery and little pantry cupboards. A huge slab of dining table dominated the side we'd emerged into, surrounded by cushioned chairs. On the other, a pair of gigantic ovens with hot plate tops and lots of bells and whistles filled the wall. One of the cupboards lay open, bottles of whiskey and vodka and other spirits clustered on the worktop beneath, surrounded by a riot of glasses, some still half full, a few smashed. Liquid courage, to fortify the cultists for their doomed uprising. Another two unfortunate corpses lay on the floor at the far end, looking as if they'd burst from inside. Detonated. The space extended out toward the rear of the house, opening onto an attached greenhouse full of expensive show plants like an upper-class version of a conservatory. And through the open double doors next to that, stairs, leading up. Yes. Twill hissed, one hand on my back. All right, but how do we get back down? Nicole said. When dash. Throb. We all winced, hard. Heart in my throat, I cast about for Sarika's ghost, my arm raised, turning on the spot, the others trying to get behind me. Why didn't it do this to you, Heather? A good question, a good bloody question, but I have a theory, Sarika's voice dripped with scorn. I almost tripped over my own feet to turn around. She was behind us, in the hallway we just left. Out of sight. Because it can't. Keep moving, Evelyn hissed. Ignore her. We all backed away together. My feet felt awkward and clumsy, trying to hold my arm up and walk backward. Throb. And then she was inside the room, right behind us. Like a furnace to one's back, panic and doom leering over my shoulder. This time, I did trip over my own feet. Exhausted and spent, I went over, flailing to face her with the fractal on my arm. Preem caught me. Twill yanked Evelyn off her feet and got behind me. Nicole hesitated with the handgun. A pointless gesture, as that terrible awareness rolled over us like a blanket of shadow and an ocean's worth of freezing water. I shivered and shook, my teeth chattering with effort. Preem held my arm up, held me up, her embrace tight around my waist. Sarika was crying, her face in her hands. I never really believed all his bullshit, she sobbed. All that guff about Dash. Throb. She blinked 30, maybe 40 degrees to the left. Preem turned me, my feet skittering for purchase on the floor tiles. The others clustered behind. Ignore her, ignore it. Evelyn gasped. We go around her, upstairs. Around that? Nicole hissed. Fat chance. She screamed, turned to static and abstract shape spread across spacetime. A data ghost lost on the tide. A million tons of pressure slammed down on me, the eye, trying to find us. Blood ran from my nose. My limbs shook with the effort of existing. Preem, rock solid with inhuman strength, held me steady. Sarika's eyes peered out from the chaos and met mine. She hated me so much. Throb. She was gone. Panting, gasping, All of us confused and blinking like moles in the light. Preem held on to me still. I tried to nod a thank you. Upstairs, now, Evelyn managed. She can't sync up with us if we keep moving. We dash. I need to help her, I blurted out. Are you mad? Yes, you're mad, of course. Preem, carry her, please. Put her over your shoulder if you have to. No, nobody deserves the eye, I insisted. Evie, nobody deserves that. I'd kill her myself if it would save Rain, but nobody deserves the eye. Look what it did to her. Heather's got a point, Nicole said. This thing is using her, right? Maybe we can Sarika, she raised her voice, strong and loud, a hostage negotiation voice. Evelyn grit her teeth in a wince. We want to help you. Detective, Evelyn hissed. If you're standing there in a few more seconds, she'll be on you. I understand you're in pain, you're hurting, you need help, Nicole continued. Silence rang out, interrupted by a thump and a crash from somewhere upstairs, the sound of breaking glass and crunching plastic, cut off by a tortured squeal halfway between human and pig. Nicole flinched at that. Twill bristled. Evelyn clucked her tongue. Look, I'm a police officer, Nicole continued. I don't understand even half of what's going on here, but these people with me do, and I'm sure at least one of them can do something for you. Nicole shot a look at Evelyn, a raised eyebrow in silent question. Evelyn shrugged, shaking her head. Do what? She mouthed. I don't know, Nicole whispered back. Reverse whatever's happened to her. Detective, an alien god did this to her. Help is not within our power. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Preem, get moving. Twill, up the stairs. She won't let me, I said. I knew it in my bones, from the look on her static-washed face. The eye wanted me, but Sarika hated me. Throb. Sarika, 6 inches from Nicole's face, screaming the rear half of a truncated sentence. Doesn't work. You see. It doesn't work. A kitchen carving knife in one of her hands, dripping crimson, her arm ratcheting back and forth in a freeze frame of lost motion, limb trailing impossible eye-searing colors. Blood poured from a ragged tear in her own throat, lost in static. Meat ripped as she rammed the knife back in again. Sarika stabbed herself in the throat and neck and even made a jab at her temple, pushing metal through hair and flesh and scraping bone into desynchronized gray matter as she flickered and jerked across the screen of reality. It won't let me go, she screamed. It doesn't work. Throb. She reappeared on the other side of the room, at the foot of the stairs, no knife and whole again. Weary and confused, I raised my arm. Preem helped, holding me tight, a frame for my exhaustion. That scrap of darkness, she tried, Sarika said, and I realized she was talking about Felicity's parasite. But it broke her too, forced her into her own body and beat her blind and deaf. You think you can do better? You don't even understand, you only care because I make you care, you dash. Throb. Behind us again. Dizzying, swaying, barely able to stay on my feet, Preem swung me round. Without the doll demon's strength we'd have been dead or insane or worse, but she held my arm up high. Kept the outside where it should be, the thinnest of layers between our flesh and the eye. Twill yelped, dragged Evelyn into the slim cone of safety. Nicole stammered, tried to speak, got nowhere. Fault, Heather. It's his responsibility, but also yours. If you didn't exist, none of this would have happened. Dash. Throb. 6 feet closer, rage leaking through the static. Preem took a step back, pulled me with her. Sarika's face screamed at me, a distorted oval, fine features blurred and smeared by interference. While my friends are all dead. Can't mourn, can't even snatch time to think. My name, I can't remember my name. Dash. Throb. In our faces now, howling. I was insensate as Preem pulled me back, limp meat in the demon's grip. And you get to live. You're beyond lucky, Sarika cursed me. The eye rose behind her, unseen but as real as nuclear fallout on the wind. You have power and you don't deserve it, because you won't use it. You get to live and we get to suffer. You think that's dash. A crash, a roar, and the sound of tearing meat, from a distant part of the house. Sarika flickered out. Silence fell. I heaved for breath, like coming up for air with bursting lungs. We stood there, stooped and shivering and sweating, waiting for the onslaught to resume. Only Preem stood tall, with me in her arms, my head lolling back on her chest. Think she's had enough? Twill growled after a minute. Her eyes darted left and right, watching for an ambush. Evelyn waved an impatient hand, but she leaned on Twill's arm all the same. Didn't you hear that? She was interrupted. And it wasn't like before, she just faded. No popping ears that time. Preem tried to prop me against the massive kitchen table, but I clung to her for support. Nicole sat down suddenly on a chair. None of us were in any state to take this opening and go rushing up the stairs. She'll be back, I croaked. She won't let me go. Is it personal? Nicole asked. Why, what did you do to her? Not about what I did, I shook my head, couldn't put it into words. What I can do. And what would that be? Help me understand here, if we're going to negotiate, with that thing. The shaman, a voice rumbled, can do whatever she puts her mind to. Even for her enemies. A giant ducked into the kitchen. Zhang. I felt myself light up with relief. What a strange, impossibly stressful day, to be so delighted by the arrival of 7 feet of blood-drenched rippling zombie muscle. Bizarre, and more than a little worrying, the depth of security I felt rushing into my chest as Zheng straightened up inside the room and flashed that shark-toothed grin. Zheng looked like a vision from hell. She'd lost her trench coat, reduced to that flimsy t-shirt and her jeans, both garments torn in several places and covered with splatters of blood, though a hunch told me none of it belonged to her. The exposed skin on. Her arms and face and belly where her t-shirt rode up glistened with the kind of sweat that only comes from long exertion. Gore covered her mouth and chin. She steamed, hot tarmac in the rain. Shaman, she purred. Oh great, it's her, Twill grunted, unimpressed. That's all we need. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, Evelyn grumbled. She nodded at the gruesome object dangling from one of Zheng's hands. I take it you're responsible for our reprieve? Zheng grinned wider in smug triumph and predatory satisfaction. She raised her trophy. Perhaps I am, wizard. A severed head. Zheng was holding a severed head, freshly torn from its counterpart neck moments ago, if the trail of blood was anything to go by. Masculine, with a strong jaw and dark hair, eyes blank and glassy. Is that from a demon? Twill frowned at it. Ugh. How can you tell? Zheng purred. The horns are a dead giveaway, I managed. As was the mouth full of needlepoint teeth. The head's owner had most definitely not been human, though probably began life as one. The shape of the skull had been warped, altered, the horns grown from the brow ridge in jutting spikes of bone, the jaw enlarged, the ears shrunken to gnarled nubs of flesh. Cult zombie? Evelyn asked. A little like me, wizard, Zheng confirmed. She crossed to us and placed the severed head on the table with a wet squelch. She couldn't get it to stand up, so it fell over on one side. Evelyn had to look away. Preem stared Zheng dead in the eye, still busy holding me on my feet. Zheng tapped the head. If an ant is like a hornet. Barely awake, vacant now. Staying hidden in the corners and under the floors. Lao Ye killed all the monkeys, burst them with the pressure of their own souls. Left the demons intact, but hollow. Filled them up. Lao Ye is using them as relays. Lao Ye? I echoed. Relays? Evelyn squinted. That is a severed head, Nicole said quietly. I'm looking at a severed head. It's got horns. Lao ya, Jing repeated, and the way she said it left no room for doubt. She meant the eye. Relays, yes, wizard. What have you been doing all this time? I blurted out, half disentangling myself from Preem's grip and almost falling over. I caught myself on the edge of the table, and a much stronger hand caught my waist. Jing wrapped an arm around me. For a moment I was strung between one demon and the other. Preem and Jing stared each other down, Preem still supporting me, Jing frozen in the act of scooping me up. I'll take the shaman now, Jing purred. You are late, Preem intoned. Not now, please. I managed, stunned by the sudden confrontation. Not now. We have to get to Rain. Preem, let me go. Jing swept me up, lifting me with ease, hauling me into her arms in a princess carry. She ran hot, like a fire burned inside her flesh. If this had been any other place, any other time, I would have blushed red as a beetroot. Right now, nobody cared, least of all me. Relays, Evelyn was muttering. For what it's using Sarika for. It's in them, in the corpses, in place of the demons that should be there. Jing nodded, sage-like. Smart wizard. Then tearing its head off disrupted the signal. I voiced. Thank you. For now. Until they triangulate again. Evelyn asked in a rush. You've been hunting them? How many, where? You won't catch them, little wizard. I can barely catch them. Both cat and mouse in this game, you and I both. Lao Ye hunts us. We should be elsewhere, yesterday. Rain's upstairs, I said. That's elsewhere. Good, Jing purred. She adjusted her grip on me. I clung to her as she took a step toward the stairs. Nicole nodded and stood up, moved to follow in the zombie's wake. Twill, not to be outdone, hurried to catch up. Preem offered Evelyn her arm. Evelyn accepted the help. Jing paused. Froze. Rock solid. What's dash? Shaman. Jing slid her supporting arm around my back, grabbed my wrist, and held it up, facing forward. A screech across the surface of reality, nails down a blackboard inside my head, a figure coalescing out of nothing in a storm of static death at the foot of the stairs. Sarika screamed back into existence. And nobody's coming to save me, nobody ever does dash. Sarika. I raised my voice above her, above the sudden mounting wave of pressure. Zheng's solidity helped. Let us go, let me save Rain and I'll help you. She flickered, 6 feet back up the stairs, then forward again, jumping in and out of time, her form blasted into static as the eye's scrutiny turned on us. Possibly due for me dash, a snatch of her voice reached out through the chaos. I'll free you, I shouted, squeezing my eyes shut. You know I can do it, you know what I am. Shaman, Jing growled, a warning tone, a warning that she was about to try something. Sarika laughed, on our left then our right. I mean it. I shouted. Against the eye. Sarika, right in my face then back on the stairs again, howling, pulling out fistfuls of her own hair. A banshee, tortured and forsaken, already exploding into static as the eye hijacked what was left of her soul. Make it let me go. Can do you that? You liar. You're like me, a human being. You can't fight a god dash. I interrupted her, spoke into the storm. Sarika, say the word, and I'll set you free. I'll make it let you go. A mercy kill. Nobody deserves the eye.